Hey there, this is That News You Care About, a weekly video game news show from the folks over at That Nerdy Site. Today is Thursday, June 11th, 2020, and I'm one of your hosts, Logan Wilkinson. Joining me for today's episode is my Phoenix son, Trevor Starkey.
Hello, hello.
And then we still are work in progress on Cameron Abbott's nickname. I don't know.
You can call me the Good Reverend.
I want to
The
call
good
him
Reverend
the
Cameron
sacrificial lamb after his prediction.
That's a good one, yeah. The
Because
Phoenix
I was
Coyote,
thinking
I'll
the
think about
coyote.
that.
That takes
I like
so
the
much
Phoenix Coyote.
context going forward.
Phoenix Coyote.
I
I
don't
was
care.
thinking-
No, you will just always be the sacrificial lamb, and we never explain it again.
Based on your conversation from last week and the whole thing with the Phoenix Sun, I was like, why didn't anybody go with like the coyote or something? Like,
Yeah.
He wanted to be like, oh, my Arizona Diamondbacks. I'm not a Diamondbacks fan.
He's a
yeah, but you don't like the
Mets fan.
Coyotes, right? The NHL team. Like, are you cool with
No,
them?
I'm an Islanders fan.
Oh, okay, then never mind. Man, why do you pick all the East Coast
Okay,
teams?
Also joining us
My
is
mom's
Frank
from New
Pisani,
York.
by the way.
Sorry, I think we railroaded over Frank's introduction there. But yes, Frank
Yes,
Pisani
Frank is
here
also
with us.
here.
Yes. I'm sorry. Yeah, I just got too distracted by sports teams from Arizona.
Phoenix
but I am,
area, yeah, sports teams. We all just got done watching the PlayStation 5 reveal event earlier today, a few hours ago now. Trevor, what happened during that hour, roughly maybe like 20-minute long conference?
We got a good look at 26 different games, and then there were a couple more in there that were kind of snuck in the sizzle reel.
Yeah.
But we're gonna kind of
One of my predictions was off of about 20 games. I'll give you a little spoiler alert here, guys.
Exactly, yeah. I was. That's why I specifically in my doc went in and started numbering all the games we got to see because I was like, Logan thought we were gonna only see 6.
I was pretty confident about it too, is the thing.
So yeah, let's just kind of run through what we saw. Well, I guess I'm curious, just before we even dive into that, what were people's general thoughts on the event itself?
I was very hyped. Like, I loved it. Like, at least just diving in. Like, I even the get go, like, I was literally like had that excitement of just like on the edge of my seat, like, can't wait for this to get started. And even once it was over, I was just like, yes, like, I loved so much about this.
Nice. What about you, Cam?
I was pretty hyped for it. I mean, I was working at the time, so I had to do it in between things I had to do at work. But it was a really cool time. Loved just how hype it got, how it built everything up to the actual reveal of the console itself. It was just, and like the graphics package alone in that, like for so many really high tier, like top tier graphics to be used, not even repeatedly, just like over and over again. They're just like showing, they're like, they have been waiting for this. They have been preparing it, and they are putting it out there, and it is awesome. So,
Yeah.
it was a great presentation.
Yeah.
Well, let me rephrase that. Actually, it was terrible. It was the worst thing they could have ever done
because there was no NAC 3. That's
because
fine.
there was no NAC 3. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, no NAC at all. Like, NAC wasn't there at all. Like, can we
Yeah.
just talk about how bad of a conference this was?
No.
Like, great way to throw in the towel right before you even start, Sony.
Uh-huh.
Like,
How about you,
jeez.
Logan?
So I feel like I maybe like it the least out of at least Frank and Cameron. I don't know your thoughts yet fully, Trev, but I thought it was a good conference. Like I don't think it was for me like a grand slam knock it out of the park kind of conference like the PS4 reveal event or like the Year of Dreams press conference like kind of run they had at a couple of E3s. But I definitely think it was a solid, like good press conference. Like the thing that I'm surprised about is A, the number of games shown, but B, almost the surprising lack of any, like, except for a few moments, like huge AAA games, right? Like this is mostly actually a conference that felt like of like, just like, you know, that B tier level of video games and like indie games. And in that regard, it was actually really interesting to watch and really interesting to see kind of Sony really invest in these games. They're really kind of trying to bring these games to the forefront. Something that I did think was really cool, obviously, that we'll get to in a moment here, is like them coming out right out of the gates with one of the biggest games of Spider-Man and then being like, it's out this holiday season. I think for me at least, that was kind of one of the highs. And then from that point onwards, like it didn't really ever hit that note again. apart from like a few indies that I really really loved. And then like part of it for me, I think, is part of the problem with like these kind of press conferences, or at least like this maybe, is that I feel like everyone already kind of knew Horizon 2 was going to be here. So when Horizon 2 popped up at the end, it was like, it's Horizon, but also like, okay, this is also kind of like, I thought Horizon would be here.
Yeah, it was like the worst, the industry's like worst kept secret that
exactly
that it was going to be in like one of the showcase pieces early on in this generation. Yeah, it was interesting. So I don't know. I mentioned this to you guys before we started recording, but I sat down and like recorded my like live reactions to it on my end. I don't know if that'll end up ever seeing the light of day on our YouTube or anything like that. I'll go back and look at it and see how it turned out. But one of the things I kind of commented on in there, maybe around the halfway point, was kind of like the realization that like we were seeing so many like smaller titles and indie titles and like third party things in this that definitely didn't feel like AAA big budget kind of stuff. And I kind of commented that I think that's a very good thing, because one of the people's concerns the last couple years has been that PlayStation's been moving away from that kind of stuff and moving away from supporting indies and being weird PlayStation. And so the number of like things in here that I would look at and say like, oh, that's a weird PlayStation game, was like refreshingly significantly more than I was expecting. But yeah, to your point, they did kind of like bookend it with a couple of their big titles there in Spider-Man and Horizon there at the end. And I would say, yeah, I think I'm probably a little cooler on it than Frank and Cam as well. But like I enjoyed it, and one of the things I really love about the presentation as a whole is that there is very much kind of there's something for everybody kind of feel to it. Even if, a handful of these games aren't things I'm going to be interested in, it was still like, oh, I can appreciate that that's for a specific audience that they're targeting with that. No, they didn't target the knack audience, but there are like 3 or 4 different like family-friendly platformer games in here that can carry the knack torch and will almost certainly do it better than knack did. So I loved kind of just the wide array of things we got to see, be it bringing kind of some classic characters back, or just kind of seeing some weird indie things that I'm like, oh, that looks really cool. I don't know what that is, but like I love like one of the ones that stands out to me that we'll get into is the Goodbye Volcano High that we get to, and that's halfway through the presentation, and it's just like a 2D animated art style, and I was like, this looks wildly different than everything else we've seen so far. I'm very interested in what this is, even if I don't know what the gameplay actually is or any of that kind of stuff. It was just like, this is a stark contrast to everything we've seen so far. So I love that they kind of like paced out the conference in fun, interesting ways. There were some things I thought went longer than I needed them to.
Agreed.
But yeah, overall I thought it was a good show. It was also very weird doing it as like a me reacting instead of, because what I've done the last 4 or 5 years is I watch this stuff alongside, I'm watching the Kind of Funny stream or something like that, or something like that, and then I'm tweeting along. And so to not even be really like paying attention to Twitter as everything was getting revealed, I was like, I don't know. It's weird watching it in a bubble, and like talking to you guys is really kind of the first. Because by the time I logged onto Twitter afterwards, I was like, I'm not going to scroll back and see what everybody's responding or was responding to throughout, because at that time it's just a cacophonous mess maybe of tweets. So yeah, it's going to be fun kind of sitting down and talking with other people about like, oh, let's talk about, what we thought about each of these different titles and stuff. So yeah, cool. Well, yeah, I have a rundown here of everything that we saw in the show. Just kind of going to go through kind of point by point. They kicked it off after a little sizzle reel of like, here's a whole bunch of everything that we did on PlayStation 4. They went into GTA 5. Is getting an expanded and enhanced version coming 2021 to the PlayStation 5. GTA Online is going to be free at launch for all PlayStation 5 owners, with the caveat of it looks like it's going to be a PS Plus basically offering probably. And currently, PS4 owners of the game will get $1 million in GTA cash every month till the PlayStation 5 GTA 5 launch. So, what did you guys think of like kicking the conference off with that?
I think that's awesome.
Yeah, I agree with Frank. The reason why I think this is a standout thing is because they are immediately addressing what is probably, I would go as far to say probably the most popular online game that PlayStation has. I mean, GTA 5 Online's community is enormous on every platform because, yeah, it is. It's still being top selling in the NPDs, so and a lot of times those copies are being sold on PS4, and a lot of times people buy them just to play GTA Online. So for them to say, hey, by the way, if you're a GTA 5 fan, aka basically saying if you like to play GTA Online, we will be you will have that caveat of like crossing over seamlessly without a problem.
Mm-hmm.
Which is massive for these people who like GTA Online is not like an easy game to like build out and do all the stuff in. Like it takes time and effort, and it's a fun game, but online can be like it can be a hassle if you're not willing to put in the time for it. And there's a lot of these clans, these the crews that are out there. I mean, Daniel Dwyer did that documentary about some of them, about like
that's a wonderful one.
Yeah, it's quite a good documentary. I highly recommend it if you want to go watch it to understand the bonds that these people have. And those people play on PS4. Like, this is the reality for a lot of people, is like they didn't, like, when they hear, okay, not everything's going to be backwards compatible, or it is, what's the issue here? For one of the most popular games saying, not only are we going to bring it over, it's going to be expanded and enhanced, but it's going to be, GTA Online is going to be free with PS Plus for PS5 owners at launch. And while you're still playing it, you get $1 million every month. So that's, I mean, say this comes out in November, December, that's $5-6 million in cash free.
It's coming out in 2021. So it's not going to be out this year, but yeah, you get $1 million every month until it comes out on PS5. So that was one of the things that I have a couple things that were on there. Like one of them, I was surprised that it's not going to be at launch, and it is going to be it is a 2021 release. But then on the flip side, kind of what you're saying is like my first response, my initial gut reaction was, this is a weird way to start this conference off. But then I was like, oh, wait, no, it is the biggest selling game of all time, pretty much. So yeah, I guess it makes sense that you want to highlight that it's going to be on your new console as well, eventually. But yeah, it is surprising to me that it's not going to be ready for the PS5 launch.
I'm not surprised because as anybody who remembers the long time between the PC launch and the launch on consoles, there was a long period of time, and it's because when Rockstar puts it out, they want to get it right, and if they're estimating that it's going to be later in 2021, like I would not even be surprised to see it delayed to like 2022 if they can't get it to work perfectly. That's just how Rockstar is with their like. It's weird that we say this about a company like Rockstar, but Rockstar really is a company that prides itself on the quality of their work.
Eventually. When GTA Online launched, it launched badly.
Yeah, but for them before
I think they've learned a lot since then.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like when Red Dead Online launched, it launched badly too. So I
all right, fair point.
Yeah, they learn in bits and in fits and starts. But yeah, it just I hear what you're saying, but it's still like it feels like they probably would have had enough time, and if the architecture is not going to be drastically differently, I mean, maybe it is. Maybe the PS5 architecture is so different that they couldn't commit to getting it done by launch here. Cool.
Well,
okay.
I wonder if it has to do with like these enhanced features, because obviously it'll probably look better, but the load times on GTA 5 are just ginormous. Yeah. And it makes sense because it's loading this huge open world, and you don't have another loading screen as long as you're just like in the open world with all of this happening. But I would really love to see them like get that Rockstar level of like polish on that SSD where they're like, okay, GTA 5 loads in 15 seconds now on PS5.
Oh my gosh, that'd be incredible.
Like that's just and if it takes them
but man,
Right, because here's the thing: is even with the SSD, it could still take 30 seconds to probably load this world, if not more, on PS5. But that's something I would love to see, and I wish they could have even showcased like in this conference. Is like, hey, look, GTA 5 loads in a third of the time now, and I think a lot of people would just really be like, oh fuck, like they're not kidding when they're talking about this SSD.
Yeah.
Yep.
Anything?
Another thing I wanted to say, last thing I wanted to say about this is GTA 5, by the way, you mentioned most selling game, only beaten by Minecraft. It's the second best selling game of all time.
Yeah, okay. I mean, I'm sure your favorite Tetris is probably up there too, but yeah, that's fair enough. Fair point. Anything to add, Logan?
Yeah, I mean, I'm more of coming at it from the opposite angle, where like I think this is kind of what I mean, where this conference to me doesn't stack up to the PS4 reveal or some of the E3s they had back in like 2013, 2014, where this is, I think, a super weak way to start the conference. I think it's super limp. Like, no matter, it doesn't matter if GTA 5 is like the best on anything or not. Like, it's still a video game that at the end of the day is 7 years old, right? And it's that thing of like, especially because
it's from the last gen, and now it is being carried forward 2 generations.
That's what I'm, and like it's just that thing of GTA 5 is fine. Like it's not even the best GTA game. That's totally irrelevant. The fact that like I just can't be excited by a 7-year-old video game being on a conference to start a conference, right? Like I think to me, I don't necessarily know people who like are in these giant clans and groups on like GTA Online are that comforted by the fact that this game is going to come here, because I would assume in their minds they would rather it just seamlessly continue. And to me it's like, well, you have to buy this game eventually on PS5 to keep playing in this world. And it's like the $1 million I think is a nice gesture. I think it's super cool. I think ultimately like whatever any of us say won't matter because GTA 5 is going to GTA 5. But in terms of like the structure and flow of a conference, I think this was not how I would have started the conference. Like to me, it's that thing of like, even if they just like flipped 2 games basically, or like even if they just have it to where, yeah, like Spider-Man comes out first and then it goes to GTA 5, I think that's a better start to a conference than GTA 5. And this like, because GTA 5 was like, it didn't last like forever, but it lasted long enough where I was like, okay, I'm ready for not GTA 5 now.
Yeah.
And like Spider-Man was such a great like boom, we're in and we're out, and then go to GTA 5. I think it makes more sense than this kind of longer open to the conference is what I would argue.
I don't know. I would disagree. I think that speaking to the base.
But I also but like
yeah. Go ahead.
But this is like, I mean, like I guess my thing too is that like if this was E3, like I still think it's a bad open, but at least then it's like, okay, sure, but like this is Sony's, like this is a PlayStation 5 console that we're launching. Here's a bunch of PlayStation and we're gonna launch it with a game that is not a PlayStation exclusive. That like no matter how you want to slice and dice it, this game is not PlayStation exclusive. That's the first game you see is not a PlayStation exclusive. It's a game that's just like is Grand Theft Auto is what it is, right? And like Jim Ryan can sit up here and talk about the fact that they've had like a 20 relationship with Grand Theft Auto and Rockstar all they want, and like it's true. But like Marvel Spider-Man or Gran Turismo, Ratchet and Clank, or these other kind of games are ones that like are like PlayStation games. And so I don't know, like I don't know anybody who really watched the GTA 5 part of the conference. It was like, I'm hyped now. Like I'm like, it's GTA 5. Like it's a thing of like at
Logan,
the end of the day you're showing off a 7-year video game and saying it's gonna be on another thing. And like we're also getting to the point where like I feel like GTA 5 is just becoming Skyrim, which is like on everything, and it's like at a certain point in time I get less excited and more just like, all right, yeah, now you're gonna be in like a fridge soon and like my coffee pot, and it's like that's cool, but like not cool in the way that I want you to start a press conference with for the marquee system that you can be launching that will like define the next like 10 years of your brand. That is what I would just, it's a 7-year video game.
Well, one thing I would point out is that this is not an E3 conference. This is a COVID-19 era video presentation. Also, one person who was hyped when they saw this, and it's me. I was super hyped about it because, one, I enjoy playing GTA Online a lot. And and to follow that up with knowing the massive, enormous audience on the PS4 alone, to look at that and then say, well, this is going to be speaking to, and this is the cold hard facts, this is going to be speaking to an audience that's bigger than Gran Turismo, than maybe not Spider-Man because of how ubiquitous Spider-Man as a brand is, but even more than Ratchet and Clank. It may not be a PlayStation exclusive, but for how much it has perpetuated through PlayStation 3 to PlayStation 4 to building a core online community that is as ride and die as a fan base can get, to address that, to me, says a lot about, we're not just here to show you the flashy new toys and gimmicks. We're here to tell you about the actual, software infrastructure of what we're going for. And that's what I see with this. When I look at, the list of games here, when I look at this, I see not a press conference as far as, an E3 conference. I see a press conference of, we're going to tell you, we're going to give you the flavor palette. We're going to give you a look at, from beginning to end, this is the kind of look that we can expect to start seeing from the PlayStation 5 from launch, which I think is actually a big criticism of the PlayStation 4 at launch, was nothing proprietary was coming out. And yet it was still the better selling console. So that says something about the exclusives not making the difference so much as the atmosphere, the infrastructure, the software infrastructure, and then also the communal gatherings that made PlayStation the dominant console of this last generation. And so I think this is a conference that spoke more to that than an E3 media extravaganza. So.
And I agree with a lot of what you're saying too, and I think a huge part of why I even think maybe they didn't need to start with this, but I definitely think it was a bigger deal because especially their backwards compatibility plan is so much murkier than what Xbox is doing, where Xbox is hey, everything's going to be on Xbox One, just put the disc in, you start it up, it's going to go. This is a little bit murkier, so it's kind of nice where they're just hey, this is going to be here for you, and if anything, this is going to be here for new people because it's basically free to play now. How many people have PS Plus, let alone you need PS Plus to do GTA Online. So basically they're just hey, everybody basically gets GTA Online now, and it's some crazy free to play type MMO at this point. I think that's kind of crazy, and a really big step forward for that until they get into GTA 6 when that online just kind of takes over.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, I agree with Logan's kind of stance in that, having it kick the event off was a weird place to put it. Whereas I could have very easily seen it be kind of the slot we usually see a Call of Duty in, throw it in somewhere in the middle of the show. It's something that needs to be addressed, needs to be thrown out there, but kicking off with it, well, yes, GTA has a bigger audience. If this is the PlayStation event, you want to highlight the PlayStation things that you will only be able to get on PlayStation. And I do appreciate that, at that point on, they basically were everything else is captured on PlayStation 5. So it was kind of it feels like it was basically a prologue to the actual event, but it was the first game that was highlighted here. So
I
don't
honestly
disagree
think
with
if
that.
this was an E3 presentation, that would have been in the that would have been the big pre-show news.
Something that Sid tells everybody while sitting at the panel.
Yeah. That's fair. Well, let's move on to the second item, and hopefully Logan can hop back in here. He keeps coming and going. So yeah, let's. Second item was Marvel Spider-Man Miles Morales from Insomniac Games coming out holiday 2020. That was the thing that really surprised me most, because obviously one of my predictions was we would see a Spider-Man tease, and I even said it won't be a date, maybe it'll be 2021, and so the fact that it was we got to see, and we even talked about on the show last week, or on the show Monday, basically, where Wednesday's show that we recorded on Monday, it was what's it going to be? Oh, I think it'll be Miles. And so shout out to us for nailing that component of it. But the fact that it's right around the corner, it's oh, okay, really cool. that said, I'm like, I don't know what the size and scope of this game is going to be. Like, my immediate gut reaction is it's going to be like a First Light kind of side thing compared, like Second Son was, or like First Light was to Infamous Second Son.
That's what I thought as well.
It'll be, kind of not a full-fledged game. Not the next, it's not Spider-Man 2. It is, the Spider-Man 1.5 kind of thing. So yeah, yes, now we can hear you, Logan. Welcome back.
I think that's a super interesting point. Like, I didn't really think about it. I really just thought like, oh, this is Spider-Man 2, and like they did so much work in building the city and the mechanics, and like so they did a lot of the hard work, and now they can just do a lot of like just new content in that world. But I think you raise a really good point, and I think that might even be why it's called Spider-Man Miles Morales. Is like, what if they do like, hey, this is like a side story spin-off where you play as Miles, and you're going to come back for Spider-Man 2 in 2022.
Well, I think that's to that point is this is Insomniac. We saw how well Second Light and reviewed and
First Light, you mean?
First Light, yeah, sorry. First Light reviewed how high people were on it. Like, I knew people who really weren't even big fans of Second Son who really enjoyed First Light. So when you look at that, I think that, yeah, doing this even as like, I mean, they could probably even sell it as a standalone if they wanted to.
Yeah.
But like doing it as like a big content release like First Light is a great idea, and it's from the studio that did First Light. So.
No. Sucker Punch.
Sucker Punch.
Sucker Punch. Yeah. Who did I think? What did I think?
Insomniac.
I don't know. I don't know where you were coming from that. But yeah, one of the interesting things. I don't know if you guys were following stuff like earlier in the day, but like a few hours, I guess, before the conference, Jason Schreier had a tweet and then deleted it. That was basically like in response to somebody about Spider-Man 2, and he basically said, no, they got another game coming up before that. And then deleted that tweet. And so like a lot of people were like, is it Ratchet and Clank, which we will obviously get to, but the fact that that we ended up like getting this, and it was like, no, this is holiday 2020. This is the next thing we're gonna get from Insomniac. I'm guessing that's why he deleted it. It was like, oh wait, no, they are per the grapevine that I've heard, they are doing this Spider-Man's potential side story thing. But yeah, it was interesting seeing kind of where that came from. Looks like Logan is having a lot of issues with Discord, so we might put a pause on this and try and like restart the call or something like that. But
let's take a moment to think. Why did I confuse Insomniac and Sucker Punch?
I don't know.
A lot of superhero games, I guess. Like a lot of momentum-based stuff.
You know what? I think the familiarity of slinging around New York as Spider-Man felt a lot like running around and like leaping through Empire City from Infamous in my mind. I guess maybe I don't know.
Maybe.
Well, that's fine. Like it's. I know it's not developed by the same people, but it's not like wildly different. It's not like if you were like, yeah, Treyarch did that. Like.
Yeah, that's true. They're within the same third-person adventure action game, so that does make sense. I'm just going to say it. It's been a long day. I don't have to go into work tomorrow, and I'm happy about that.
So, like, how cool is it to be playing as Miles Morales?
I'm interested to see how his playstyle goes, because as much as I would love to play Miles Morales, I would love to play Miles Morales from, Into the Spider-Verse versus the one you get in Spider-Man PlayStation game. Like, that one's, like, fine. Like, it's cool, but, like, I don't know, the one from Into the Spider-Verse is way
The
cool.
one we got from Spider-Man, the PlayStation, the original game was, like, he was only doing stealth modes. Like, he wasn't Spider-Man yet. So, like, I don't think we're going to be playing that version of him again. I did
say
see
that. I'll make you eat crow if we have to do stealth missions again like that.
By the way, you owe me Portillo's because they didn't mention teraflops at all.
No, they didn't. They didn't mention teraflops whatsoever. I owe you Portillo's.
They didn't mention triangles either, which I was disappointed at. So then that goes back to Knack too, because here's the thing: they're talking about how many triangles this console can make, and they literally aren't making a Knack.
That was epic, talking about how many triangles they can make.
Yeah, that was for the Unreal Engine 5.
But powered by PS4 or PS5.
Yeah. But it was like an epic presentation talking about triangles, not PlayStation talking about triangles.
To be fair, it just feels like maybe Mark Cerny saw that presentation And he's like, well, they already talked about triangles, and that was like my entire presentation. Like,
He's
what am I
like, they
supposed
have
to
more
do?
triangles than Knack 3 does, so
Yeah,
cancel
they
the
have more
game, pull it from the conference.
it's like
That was
pull it
the
from the
original
conference.
opener, and they had to replace it with GTA 5.
Shuhei, take it out. But it like, oh, but no, it's fine, Mark. No, it's not fine. They had more triangles than Knack 3. The Knack gods won't allow for it.
Your obsession with Knack is annoying.
Weird.
It's just a meme, man. I just love the meme.
Well, welcome back again, Logan. So we've gone on a little bit of various tangents around Marvel Spider-Man, waiting to try and get you hooked back up. Do you have any thoughts on Marvel Spider-Man, Miles Morales here, Logan?
Yeah, I mean, like, Trevor kind of took my big thing, which is the fact that I think it's going to be a bit like Second Son. That was my initial reaction. Like, it could very well be Spider-Man 2, and I wouldn't be, like, stunned if that's the case. But ultimately, I think it's going to be more, like, kind of like, not like a deal, more like...
like First Light was to Second Son.
Yeah. That's what I meant to say, yes.
Yeah.
But more like Uncharted Lost Legacy kind of thing.
Yeah.
Almost, where it's like that kind of vibe. Like I imagine, based on what I've seen and the vibe I'm getting, it's going to be like a $40 kind of standalone thing, whatever you want to call it. And then, yeah, in 2022, we'll get like Peter Parker as Spider-Man again. And
Yeah,
like,
the fact that we're
Spider-Man
getting it
2.
like so soon is what really like leads me to believe that it's not a full-fledged game. The fact that we are going to have it basically by the end of the year, as one of the like launch window titles. I'm like, very cool, and it probably is building off of just the existing world or something like that.
I mean, who knows? Insomniac could have turned themselves into a sweatshop. We don't know.
I mean, they're a huge studio. Like, they have a lot of teams.
And they have multiple teams, because we'll get into another one of their games here in a little bit. But yeah, I mean, I'm super excited for it, and just the idea of getting to play as Miles, I'm excited for, especially after Spider-Verse. I started to say, somebody mashed up the trailer with What's Up Danger, and some scenes and stuff from Spider-Verse, and I was like, yeah, this is gonna be really cool playing as Miles.
I just realized they're probably gonna have the Into the Spider-Verse outfit in this game.
Oh yeah,
Ooh, yeah.
almost guaranteed.
I am very excited for that then, because the outfit from Spider-Verse is the freshest Spider-Man outfit of all time. Like, it is the best.
I'm excited to just like mute the in-game music and pull up like Spotify and just listen to the soundtrack from Spider-Verse and just swing around the city. Like,
yeah,
it's good. You know what? You've 100% sold me on it at this point. I'm 100%. I'm 110% in. Let's get this game.
This was definitely one of the most hype announcements, even though I felt like, at least I feel like we all, or a lot of people, really like saw this coming or knew it was going to come, like something from Spider-Man, whether it was this. But this is still like, I feel like one of the most hyped things in the entire conference.
Yeah. Well, let's dive on to the next game introduced, Gran Turismo 7, which this was one that admittedly I thought ran a little longer than I needed it to. Like, I don't know why we did like full laps around the course or whatever. Looks friggin' beautiful, as would be expected. I'm also, of course, annoyed that they didn't say, you know, we'll put you in the driver's seat like never before. Whatever my little like tagline that I pitched for it was going to be.
That's a good one though.
It's a great one.
I mean, especially because like
part of the team, they didn't have any narration during that part either. It was just empty noise.
I mean,
well, I think I haven't checked for, like, the 3D audio.
Yeah, I haven't looked for like the press release on it or whatever, but I'm sure they will highlight like haptic feedback and the 3D audio and the adaptive triggers and how all of those, you know, play into really putting you in the driver's seat, all that stuff.
Like
no release date
before.
on it. Exactly, yeah. No release date on it. But yeah, it looked really cool. It looks like we lost Logan yet again. So anything from you guys to add on that?
Yeah, I think that this was great for those car aficionados out there. Longtime fans of the GT series are very passionate individuals, even though there's not a lot of them. They were very, like, from what the consensus I saw from both people who reviewed it and also people who commented on it, GT Sport was not well received by that neck of the woods. Which, you know, I understand. You want that full-fledged sequel. You don't want this like sport game. It's tough. Like, it's hard when if you're a Gran Turismo like fanboy, seeing something like Horizon 2 or Forza Horizon 2 or like any of these other race simulators that have just kind of like come out and just, you know, taken the air out of the lungs of the GT franchise, and nothing I saw here wowed me. But then again, like, I don't know the intricacies of these car game aficionados, but you know, hopefully they enjoyed it. I like that GT's back.
Yeah, we spent so long just kind of like driving around the track in the cockpit of the car or whatever. I was just like, is there detail work that I'm just not seeing and appreciating that's going on here when like anytime like they switch a gear, all that kind of stuff?
It was a weird everything. Like that entire Gran Turismo like demo, like it was another one for me where like it just went on way too long, and like literally like the note I had in my like notes is just like weird longer look at it again. Like we like had our demo and then it was like, and now we're gonna show you it again, and like as like a race, but we're not gonna show you the beginning or end of the race, just like the middle part, which is arguably the least interesting, and we're just gonna like show you that world.
Yeah. But at the same time, I was watching it and being like, there's one more game, so we keep getting more of these, and Logan's prediction's going to be wrong.
I agree with Logan on that, though, because like it was kind of weird how like they demoed it, and then they left, and then they like came back into like a gameplay demo. And I thought like I was like, that probably could have been like a smoother transition, and overall they probably could have cut that section down a lot. But I definitely like I just definitely think, though, at least with that, like I think that was supposed to be like one of their bigger showcases for like 3D audio, because it definitely sounded like as you were accelerating and cars were getting farther away, like I don't know if you guys listened with headphones, like Mr. Mark Cerny advised us.
That's a great question. I did. And it did sound like there were a lot of moments in this that sounded really cool with the kind of surround sound audio going.
Oh, see, that's my problem. I was using my work headset, which is like the cheapest audio that you can get. So
I didn't even use the headset. I just listened to it on my laptop or on my TV.
And that's where like it gives you I understand what they were going for, but I listened to it on my TV and in my like nice headphones. And on the TV, it just makes it sound like they have really bad like audio for some of the sections, because it kind of just like dips in and out. But like on the headphones, I definitely get like what they're going for, where it's like, oh, that thing's really far away, so you don't hear it as well, but you still hear it like in the distance. And with GT, like, oh, I sped up, so my car's louder, and I got closer to their car, so their car's louder. Like I get that's why they were going for, and I think that's why they gave us like such a long, just straight gameplay of like, this is what the middle of a race is like. But I definitely think like, I'm like, yeah, what a weird like kind of way to just kind of slow the whole pace down. I also think like, I mean, if we could go hands on with it, I think this is probably like their biggest showcase for the haptic feedback, in terms of like the trigger is actually like a throttle, and you really get a lot of rumbling when you're going over certain surfaces, let alone like if you go off road on like grass. But it's definitely like, it's hard to, I think, showcase in like a 5-minute solid chunk like that, or whatever that was. Like, yeah, I think they could have cut that back.
Yeah. Up next, we have Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart, a second game here from Insomniac. No release date on this, but a fully like from the ground up Ratchet and Clank, not like the remake that we got a few years back. So yeah, what did everybody think about Ratchet and Clank making an appearance here?
It was awesome. As somebody who does not have a long history with this franchise, my first Ratchet and Clank was the remake.
Same.
Yeah, so, and it was just such a cool, fun experience. Just totally came out of nowhere for me. It was such a highlight of that year. And to see this game from the ground up, like, let's talk about it. The ray tracing in that game looks amazing.
The game looked amazing, and I was I got so confused by what was actually happening in the gameplay. Like anytime they went into one of the rifts, I was like, "What just happened? Where do we go?" This is so like, I'm sure it'll make way more sense actually playing it, but like watching it, I was just like, I am so disoriented right now.
I'm really excited for for the weapon that they use though for the rifting, when he like the wrist like launcher that he has that lets him zoom over places. That's going to be so cool.
Yeah. And the idea that like I saw a little bit of somebody talking about the game kind of afterwards, I think maybe from Insomniac, and basically like talking about how like some of that was like you're going between like entire levels of the game in some of the rift jumping that they're doing, which they can only do because of the SSD, kind of the way that they've that PlayStation 5 is recontextualizing how loading works. Is you can completely load a new level from the level you were just in, instead of having to hop into a loading screen and like travel to a world or something like that. So like that definitely this was the first one of what we've seen so far that really felt like a showcase for the power of the PS5.
I totally agree with. I totally
Frank.
agree with that. Sorry.
No, I was throwing it to you because you of the four of us, you have the most history with Ratchet and Clank anyway.
Yeah, because that's something I was even going to mention too. Because like I love Ratchet and Clank going all the way back to the PS2. Like I think I mentioned on one of our other shows, like that was my favorite of like that mascot of the mascot games on like PS2. And when they remastered that one or remade it in 2016, that's a great game. I loved it. I got the platinum in that, just like I have the platinum in the original. And like that's one of my favorite Ratchet games they ever did, and I'm so happy to see them back with in not only making a new Ratchet game, but it has like that feeling of not only the 2016 remake, but like what Ratchet was, because they definitely got really far away from that during like the PS3 generation. So I'm happy to see way more of that. And I totally agree with what you're saying, though, because I think this was one of the best showcases for what the PS5 can do in a really surprising way. Like, I knew we were going to get more Ratchet, but I couldn't imagine it as like a PS5 game or even like a PS5 showcase of like, this is what this game can do, because you're going to get ray tracing and particle effects and crazy weapons and all the things you expect from Ratchet. But yeah, when they really get into like, no, because of this SSD, we're able to just literally, you're able to jump through a portal, and in the end, in the 2 second animation of you going into a portal, we were able to load the entire level like you were just in. And from somebody who's been playing Ratchet and just games for forever, it's like, oh my God, that's insane. Like you could hop from level to level to level to level. And like that just really excited me for not only like this game, but also like all the games we're gonna get on PS5, because like all of these things of like the elevators from Mass Effect and like opening doors and like all the things they do to like hide loading screens are just gonna be like gone. And you can just instantaneously get in a ship and fly to a new planet in 2 seconds.
Yeah. Yeah, really cool. I'm very much looking forward to it, and the little bit of gameplay we got to see in terms of like because this was another one they did kind of the trailer, and then they talked about it a little bit, and then they were like, and here's some gameplay kind of stuff. One of the things I loved, and I had known about Ratchet and Clank for years, but really only got to go hands on with it in the latest one, is the variety of like weapons and the fun, nature they have in those weapons. And I love that like one of the first weapons they show off in that gameplay section is like something that basically like just spits out plants, and if I was like seeing correctly, it looks like the plants are basically shooting water at the enemies. Like they're basically like little mines that and it just kind of like, oh, suddenly there's like grassy flowers and stuff that you created and are now attacking your enemies for you. And so I look forward to the variety of random weird weapons that they do once again. Any last thoughts on Ratchet and Clank before we move on?
Looks real good.
I'm excited for the weapons too, especially because I'm really excited to see what they're able to do with the PS5 and like in the particle effects and the SSD. Because like, yeah, like I wonder how many of these crazy, like they've always had crazy weapons, and I love the way you like upgrade the weapons and they only get crazier and more powerful. So I'm really curious to see like what are they able to do that was never possible before, and like are they going to go back and pull out some crazy ideas from the past that they've like, hey, we weren't able to do this on PS2, 3, and 4, but we can finally do this on the 5. Like,
Yeah,
I'm really excited about that.
yeah. Well, moving on to the next game was Project Athia. From Square Enix and Luminous Studios, which is, I believe, the Final Fantasy 15 team. Looked pretty cool. I don't really have any notes on it from here. There was a big old like fiery dragon. I want to say African American lady was kind of our little protagonist in that, right? And it looks like like they had text in there that said something like designed exclusively for the PlayStation 5 or for PlayStation, I think. So strikes me as like, oh, okay, it's a PS5 exclusive probably. But it looked very very cinematic in nature, as Square Enix trailers often are.
Did you guys see Gary Whitta's tweet about it?
Oh yeah, that's right. And this is the one that Gary Whitta is the narrative lead or something on. Like,
Yeah,
he said something about
he worked with
led the
a team
team on
of
this?
English writers and scholars and all sorts of people to kind of sit down and craft a universe for this new franchise from Square Enix. So, I've heard.
First in a series if it does well.
Yep. I mean, I've heard that before. Kino's Bommler.
Yeah. Well, it's coming back.
After years, and it's just a remake.
Yeah.
I've heard, hopefully, I really want this to do well. I want Square Enix to get a win. I want Gary to get a win. I want all of us to get that fat W. But as as history has told us, usually when this has been put as a big deal, it does not bode well. So
I mean, we'll see. It definitely seems like they're putting the resources behind it. So,
prove me wrong, please prove me wrong, please.
Yeah. And it seems like we're getting this in lieu of the primary Final Fantasy team is going to continue working on the Final Fantasy VII story. We're not probably going to get a Final Fantasy 16 anytime soon. So this keeps that team busy. So yeah,
keeps them employed.
I will be very interested to see kind of where this ends up going when it's not just like the beautiful CG trailers that they love to do.
I stopped watching for a moment when this one came on, like in the very, very beginning of it. But when the gameplay started is when I tuned back in, and I honestly was like, "Is this the Harry Potter game?" Like, I got really excited because it was like her with the cape jumping around, and she she does the magic, and the trees come out of the ground, and there was a dragon, and I was like, "Oh my god!" They're doing the Harry Potter game.
Harry Potter game's real, yeah.
Yeah, and then it was because I totally missed the beginning. And then when I finally saw the end, and they're like, "Oh, this is Project Athia," and then I was like, "Oh, okay." And I looked into it a little bit more and saw Gary's tweet, and I was like, "Okay, yeah, this is definitely not Harry Potter." But other than that, I think it looks really cool. It looks like a really interesting, beautiful game, and the fact that Gary and this crazy team of writers are working on the story and the world has me pretty interested.
Yeah, lore sounds like it's going to be right up your alley, Cam.
Yeah, but I just don't want my heart to be broken like it's been before.
Whereas I do want your heart to be broken. Moving on, let's look at Stray from Annapurna and Blue 12 Studios. This one had a lot of robots, and then it had a little cat walking around. And it got as we neared the end of the trailer, I was sitting there, I was like, "Oh, are we going to be playing as the cat?" And then the Stray comes up. I was like, "I'm guessing, yeah, we're probably going to be playing as the cat." It looks like it's dated for 2021. I saw somebody commenting that this is something that they saw back in 2012.
I also saw it, yeah.
So
I
yeah,
think Eric Sapp maybe mentioned something like that.
Yeah, that sounds right. So that's cool that this is something that's finally kind of progressing and getting some new life breathed into it. This was one of many Annapurna offerings that were included in the showcase today. So shout out to that. Given that I know Frank especially is kind of the Annapurna stan of that nerdy site.
I love Annapurna.
Yeah, I was happy to see them get so much love here, and Devolver even gets a little bit of a shout out in the montage, and I was like, "Yep, Sony, you did it."
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, if this is just if all this game ends up being is robot Blade Runner with cat, I'm totally here for that. The aesthetic, the vibe, everything about it, I'm all about. I'm all in on this game. Yeah.
Yeah, I love the colors of it. Is the thing that thinking back on it, that I remember jumping out to me. And kind of the cyberpunk vibe, but yeah, I think Blade Runner is probably an even more apt comparison, just because it was neon lights and not punk so much as just the cyber nature of it, with all the robots. It's
interesting too because I feel like it seems really obvious, but I feel like they've never had a game where it's just robots set in that kind of world. I feel like whenever you see robots, they're usually so clean and everything, and this is just oh no, robots are also dystopian now. And so it was just I adored the look of this game.
Yeah.
Wait, you didn't get that punk attitude from the cat?
No, I didn't. He's just kind of doing his own little thing, but not
it-
in like an aggressive way.
I don't know, man. I'm looking at a picture of him right now, and he's like squinting off, staring off to the distance, and then he squints off, staring directly at the camera. Like,
Cameron is
Pretty
busy
pumped to
writing
me.
his cat fan fiction right now about this
no,
game.
no,
Those-
you'll never see me writing cat fan fiction.
Before before the showcase started or whatever, I was catching Kind of Funny, and they were doing like last minute predictions, and Cameron Kennedy and the Kind of Funny community put together like a bingo card, and one of the things on the bingo card, like one of the squares, was there will be no fewer than 3 dogs and no cats. And so this was point 1 where I was like, well, he got that wrong. And then there were like a couple more cats throughout the throughout the showcase where I was just like, oh, he just completely missed the cats thing on this one. But yeah, that cat looked really good. That was like a very
That was one of the moments where I was like, shit, that does look really good.
yeah. Any other thoughts on Stray? Okay, moving forward, they before they dove into the next game, they did kind of a quick little like highlight of a whole bunch of the PS5 features, as well as the DualSense features, including 4K Ultra HD Blu-ray, Ultra High-Speed SSD, ray tracing, haptic feedback, adaptive triggers, a USB port. Thank friggin' God, because I've been having a pain in the ass trying to charge my PS4 controllers recently with the USB whatever crap it was. Motion sensors, built-in microphone and speakers, and then 3D audio. So yeah, just kind of we'll showcase that before we dove into a new game from Housemarque called Returnal, which I noted here as live die repeat number 1 of the of the conference here. No date on this, but it was very much kind of like a story, a narrative kind of driven trailer of this lady who is, landing on this planet, fighting off its, nature or whatever, and then dying, and then just starting over again and again and again, with the planet seemingly shifting each time. And so definitely like that narrative seems to give me like roguelike vibes. And then we saw that it's more like third person action shooter than maybe the kind of twin stick shooter that we're, I think, used to from Housemarque. But yeah, that's what jumped out at me. Anybody else?
Do you guys still think that plays like a twin stick? Because I just
No.
kind of, the way it looked, I feel like it might, but that's kind of wild, right?
Whenever Housemarque announced a few years ago, and I know because Jarrett wrote a piece back on IP about it, where it's like they basically said like we're done making these kind of style like arcade twin stick shooter games because
Because they don't sell.
yeah, they're just, like it's literally that they just don't sell enough. And so like I think this is almost, I mean, I would say this is closer to like a big third person like shooter, like survival horror game than it is any sort of twin stick thing. Like, and it's interesting for me too watching it, where the moments I was the least interested in this game were when the character, when she was just like actively shooting. Like, I liked the idea of this being like more of a like horror survival horror game more than like when she get into like these big firefights, like creatures all around her. Be like, I don't like this as much. I just want to be a spook fest here, and it be spooky and be aliens, and I want it to be like an alien version of Groundhog Day meets Live Die Repeat, or whatever they called it when they changed the name when it came out.
That was the second one. It was originally Edge of Tomorrow.
Yeah, Edge of Tomorrow is such a better name, God. Yeah, I mean, the trailer though, the demo they showed looks great. Like it's one of probably like, it might just miss my like top 5 of the show, but it's definitely up there.
Yeah, it's interesting because one of the things that I was thinking about, and so I just went in and kind of looked it up. In one of the Kind of Funny showcases, they had a Housemarque game that was going to be like a battle royale type game called Storm Divers, and I was like, seeing this as like, my first response is like, how many teams does Housemarque have? Because I feel like they're constantly working on like 2 or 3 games, and I'm just now seeing that apparently Storm Divers got put on hold back in January. It looks like looks like maybe they kind of are putting all their attention here on Returnal here, as a PS5 title. I very much am also curious if it's going to be a PS Plus, included kind of game in the spirit of Resogun, because obviously that was Resogun was one of the probably notable launch titles of the PS4. But since they didn't put a date on it, it's probably not. They're probably not sure if it's going to hit that window or anything like that.
For me, at least, I get the vibe that this is going to be a much bigger game than like I think this is going to be like I would take the lowest $40 game. Like I think this is going to be a pretty big video game. Like I don't think they'll put it up for like free, or I don't think it's gonna be 26 year. Like I think this is Housemarque coming out and like really doing something significantly bigger than they've done before.
I agree.
I have a lot of respect for Housemarque, and I never really play their games just because I'm not really a twin stick guy. Even though, like I said, I have a lot of respect because I think they're a great developer. I've been watching them for a long time now. But like after hearing like what Logan had to say here, like if that's true, and I believe it might be kind of based on the conversation, like that has me very excited. Like because now it sounds like they're doing some kind of like horror version of Gears of War, or like Vanquish, or whatever third person shooter you kind of want to throw on there. And that has me very interested, whether it's smaller or a little bit bigger. But I now kind of hope it's a little bit bigger of like a game and kind of like the PlayStation equivalent to like a Gears of War or something.
Yeah.
They could use that too.
There you go. Very cool to see Housemarque kind of getting continued PlayStation love here. Next up, we have Sackboy, A Big Adventure. A new Sackboy game, dropping the Little Big Planet name, and also not from Meaty Molecule. As I was watching it, I was like, if they come at the end of this and say like this entire thing was made in dreams, I'm gonna, like lose my damn mind. But really cool to see that Sackboy getting kind of his own seemingly like full-blown 3D platformer with up to 4-player co-op looked like, and then just kind of I'm curious, like. It seems like they're going all in on the platformer side because they didn't really showcase anything in terms of like the level building side of things that you usually get from a Little Big Planet kind of game, and this is more seemingly just kind of a turning Sackboy into a platforming mascot kind of character. So what do you guys think of that one?
I like Little Big Planet, so I'm here for anything involving Sackboy. I love like goofy platformers, so like. I'm excited. Again, like, if this game is just, like, the main campaign section of a Little Big Planet game, but maybe longer and more, like, fleshed out, because that's is what it is, I'm all aboard for that. Looks fun, looks cute, looks colorful. Yeah, absolutely.
I'm happy it's here. Like, I'm happy it was part of it's coming on PS5 and it's part of the conference, because kind of like we talked about, I think this was a really well-rounded conference in terms of like there's something for everybody, including just like the family people, or even like the hey, you're a parent who's going to buy the PS5. This is what your kid can do while you're doing other stuff or whatever. And like I think that's super important. But definitely for me personally, like I don't have anything against Sackboy or Little Big Planet, but like this is definitely one of the ones that like didn't really hit home for me, or that I'm not going to play. I do think it's interesting they're moving away from Little Big Planet and going with Sackboy, because I definitely think this is one of those things where Sackboy is like a more notable property than Little Big Planet. Like, so I think that's interesting at least.
Yeah, really like going all in on like, hey, Sackboy is the recognizable component of this, so let's go ahead and like start marketing it as Sackboy stuff.
I will also remark before we move on, I thought it was funny when they just did that Sony, I forget the name, but it's like their Interactive Studios, their new like Marvel type intro, and Sackboy was in there, and for me, I was like, Sackboy hasn't had a game in forever, what are you doing? And I'm like, oh no, he's still here, he's still relevant.
Yeah, and this maybe that was kind of the glimpse of why we got Sackboy in that, because I think I want to say like all of the franchises that were in that pretty much got a showcase today, right? Didn't they?
I think so, except for maybe
except like Last of Us. Yeah, Last of Us and Uncharted did not, I guess. Yeah. Still really cool. And you say you don't want to hop into this. I'm kind of tempted to like have us do like a co-op stream of it or something like that.
I would
maybe
love
down
to.
the line if we start doing some more of that.
If we do it for this site, I'm on board.
Yeah, it'll be a ton of fun. Yeah, I'm excited.
Cool. Next, we got Destruction All Stars from Lucid Games and XDev. It immediately struck me as like a Twisted Metal like kind of game because it's vehicle combat. But then they also had like people running around the like the field while there are like cars driving and stuff. And so I'm like, okay, well now I definitely don't know what's going on. Anybody have? But this was the first time I found myself like looking away from my phone. And again,
Yes.
I think part of this was because this one went longer than it needed to.
Yes.
And so, yeah, I kind of like, this is the first time I found myself starting to try and check in on Twitter and see what was going on and see what other people were reacting to and stuff. So it came like, when we moved on to the next game, at first I was like, I don't even know what that game was called. And like, I realized that because I was recording myself, doing reaction stuff. And I was like, oops. Yeah, I totally shouldn't have just tuned out like I did there. But did anybody else have a more positive
Somebody will
response to
enjoy
it?
I'm even with you guys on that because like I feel like I'm in the demo for like who this game is for is not only being like a huge PlayStation fan, like I'm in that demo of like I like arcade racers and stuff. Like I mean this is definitely not like a Need for Speed or like an Onrush or something like that. Like it definitely looks a little bit more unique and it looks like a little bit like Rocket League Twisted Metal inspired. And I feel like I'm in the demo for this as somebody who still continues to play those games. And even I was like, it looks okay. I don't know why this is really like is part of the conference, or I don't even mean like it shouldn't be a part of the conference, but I think you're definitely right, Trevor, where like it didn't need to be as long as it was.
This and the game that came after were just two for me where it's like I literally didn't write down a single note for them. I just like have their name and I'm like, that's it. I don't have anything. I have no thoughts on these games.
Cam, did you have any thoughts on Destruction All Stars?
No, I mean it's got like a real like Gen Z aesthetic to it for sure.
Yeah.
Like a very modern fashion aesthetic as far as that goes, but no, not really.
Nobody has any thoughts about this video game.
like this
Yeah,
this game
okay.
this game might just be actually like the lowest point of the entire conference for me.
Fair. Okay, so moving on to Kina Bridge of Spirits from Ember Lab. So you said you didn't really take any notes on this one, Logan.
No.
Like the animation stuff, like
Oh my
especially because
gosh.
the brothers introduced it as like we have a background in film and animation and stuff, and so immediately you get into it. I'm like, oh, this definitely looks like an animated kind of movie. And specifically, there was some gameplay stuff where I was like, is this basically PlayStation Pikmin? Because it looked like those the little like black kind of creatures that were following you around, you could like kind of like send them out to do stuff for you. So I've admittedly never played Pikmin, but that is per like Super Smash Brothers my understanding of what Pikmin does. So if anybody can speak to it more efficiently or effectively,
I will. Yeah.
yay or nay.
I love this. I loved the trailer. I loved the gameplay that they showed. I'm so all about this. This was an incredible, wonderful like little treat that I got out of this conference. That it was just the little black creatures are adorable. A lot of the it's just such a fantastical looking world, and I love that feeling of it's the aesthetic of like the blue energy is good energy, the red energy is the bad energy. There's this creepy enemy that you're up against who like, but then all of a sudden it takes a turn where it's like, cool. Then they stab you, and your amulet takes the blow, and I'm like, oh, this gets real. Okay, and
the girl kind of had some of those like Link vibes from Breath of the Wild, like when we saw some of those first Breath of the Wild trailers, and everybody was like, oh, how cool would it be if we played as Zelda, and she was doing that kind of stuff. This seems to almost be like in response to that and be like, yeah, it would be really cool if Zelda was out there doing that stuff. So we're gonna make our protagonist a female archer / staff girl.
I love that though. I love I don't know if it's in response to that, but it definitely for me it felt more like it felt more like a Ghibli, Studio Ghibli, like old school Totoro level of like, Kiki's Delivery Service type protagonist, where it's, someone just out there doing like having fun, doing good, and then like being a total badass. So I love it. Like I love the entire aesthetic of everything about this, from its gameplay to the graphics to the art style to just the music was beautiful. Like I loved every moment of it. So. Very excited for it.
Cool. Yeah, this was the part of the conference that I kind of mentioned earlier, that like the last game, this game, and then the next one, Goodbye Volcano High. This was the part where I was sitting there thinking like, it's really cool to see PlayStation being weird PlayStation again, and like and committing to, you know, these smaller titles and giving them this giant showcase for, you know, as when I was like rewatching to like take this kind of like flurry of quick notes and stuff, the thing was already at like 1.5 million views or something like that for the stream. So you know, putting these kinds of games out there and showcasing them for, you know, a massive audience when all eyes were going to be on them, really cool stuff. So yeah, Goodbye Volcano High from Co-op. That, like I said earlier, like this immediately jumps out to me because it looked completely different from anything we'd seen so far. 2D animation, angsty high school dinosaur characters, with like seemingly at the end of like the dinosaur age. Coming out in 2021. We got an email kind of after the fact that this is a Pop Agenda supported game. So shout out to our friends over there at Pop Agenda. And yeah, this one, like I have no idea what the gameplay of this one is. If it's going to be, you know, story-driven, like narrative kind of thing, is my guess. But yeah, it just like immediately was like, okay, this game is completely different from anything we've seen so far. That's really cool. What'd you guys think?
I'm all about it.
Yeah, it gave me Monster Prom vibes a little bit.
Interesting.
Like just the idea of like a 2D game that, you know, it looks super cool. I'm really interested in how it's going to come out. Like it feels like it's the kind of game that may not be like aesthetically or just even just overall for me, but like I can think of like 3 people off the top of my head that this game probably really like is going to be like at least a touchstone to just like get into. Whether or not they enjoy it or not, you know, who knows. But I can think of like 2 or 3 people off the top of my head right now that are probably already thinking about this game.
Yeah.
Logan. I was just gonna say, like, I'm all about it. I love this game. Like I got a little bit of like Night in the Wood vibes from it.
Okay,
like anthropomorphic animals and this kind of like serious seeming storyline. Yeah, I mean, I want it. Like I assume it's gonna be a like story driven like narrative game, and like maybe like Oxenfree and Night in the Woods. I think are like the closest kind of parallels I can kind of go to with something maybe like Monster Prom, but like a more serious version. Yeah, like I'm all about it. Like it is probably one of my 5 favorite games from the conference. The fact that Papa Agenda is like doing PR for it makes me even more confident that it's gonna be like a solid title. And then just like, yeah, I mean like the aesthetic look of it, I am just all about. I am totally sold on Goodbye Volcano High.
Yeah, the just pulled up the email from Pop Agenda. Cinematic narrative adventure Goodbye Volcano High. The emotional, high-stakes teenage narrative adventure will take players on a journey to self-discovery, deciding how to live your life to the fullest when you know that your days are numbered. That's really cool.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Me reading the email and responding to it in real time there. Yeah.
There was... Yeah, I think it was from Goodbye Volcano High, but it's either from that or from JETT. I can't remember one of them, but I wrote down the quote of just like, I'm standing on the edge of doing great things, but like I just have to have faith that I can do them, kind of thing, basically. Just like, but like the quote of like, I'm standing on the edge of doing great things, but I'm not there yet. I was like, fuck, that's a great line. Like that's such a good Logan-ass line. So I was like, I'm all on board for Goodbye Volcano High.
Yeah. Frank, anything from you to add?
Yeah. Like I'm totally in the same boat as you guys. Like this one was definitely very interesting. I feel like it very connected with me in terms of like random games that I'm interested in. I got a lot of adventure game vibes from this, so I definitely felt like it was in that camp, even though it could be the gameplay could be, you know, anything. But I'm definitely 100% down for this like really interesting story they're trying to tell in a new kind of interesting world. And even like kind of like what Logan said, like that quote I believe is from this game, and that definitely like that
is, yeah.
When you talk about connecting with me, that was a right hook across the face. Like I was like, oh shit. And then when you get to the end, like when I feel like you see, I feel like it was the trailer. I don't want to just like go over it, but it was really, I think, impactful in the way like you see these 2 characters kind of like laughing with each other. You see the character laughing with a different person, and then that other character's immediately like jealous and impacted, and then you see them like crying together at the end. And I was like, oh wow, this is going to be something. Like this is going to go places.
Yeah. That's going to be an exciting one for us to see next year.
Yeah.
Moving on, we have Oddworld Soulstorm. Lauren Lanning came on and kind of introduced this show, or this title. I've never played any of the Oddworld games or the Abe's
Neither
Odyssey
have I.
games, so I can't speak to any of them. But it had some really cool effects in there that jumped out at me as like, some of those like world bending, seemingly kind of like just graphical kind of things where I was like, oh, that's really cool that like even a game the size and scope of something like Oddworld can like do something like that on the system. That kind of jumped out at me. I don't know if anybody else has anything
My
to add on
my
this one.
my only real takeaway again as somebody who also has never played an Oddworld game was that this game seemed way darker than I thought like Oddworld games. And like that's the thing, like I don't know if it's just like
Oh,
this game
no,
is a
you're
particularly dark Oddworld game or like but this game seemed way darker than I remember like
So
my understanding of
Oddworld games are super dark. They're super dark and really twisted.
So yeah,
It's
I have nothing to base it. Yeah, so that's
yeah,
I'm like I was like,
it's
wow,
it,
okay.
like it's literally about like corporate slavery, pretty much. Like corporate slavery in a literal sense of like being an actual literal slave to a corporation. Like indigenous peoples, all sorts of stuff. And Abe is kind of like the leader of his people, and so the entire point of the other games were you're trying to get your people through these levels to then like get them to freedom, and that was kind of the idea. The Odd World as like an overall arching like universe is I'm not well versed in it, but it's like it has some depth to it. Um, Anybody who's ever seen an interview with Lauren Lanning knows that that dude is just like bonkers bananas out there, as in the best way possible.
He also
Uh,
loves Oddworld. Like I give him
yeah,
credit for like he loves the thing he's created and worked on for forever, and he keeps championing it. So they keep making more.
yeah, and the thing is, they do like they're relatively successful. So um, the level at which they're able to put in for like the level design in this one looks incredible. I'm not a big Oddworld fan, but like I've played enough to know like what the kind of gist of it is. But it's a game that's going to be really good for the people who love Oddworld as a franchise, and with the partnership that PlayStation has had with I forgot the company's name, but essentially the Oddworld company. Uh, like it seems like it's a good, healthy partnership still, so that's good to hear.
Yeah, looks like they may have rebranded as Oddworld Inhabitants because that's the studio that was like that is assigned to Soulstorm here. So,
Nice.
but yeah, Lauren Landon, crazy smart guy, in anything I've ever seen him do. But yeah, I've just never gotten into any of those games myself. Up next, we hit pretty much. I think we're nearing the halfway point here with the first gameplay look at Ghostwire Tokyo from Bethesda. This, like, I remember seeing this at E3 last year, I guess would have been. And obviously, this was the one that I want to say Akumi Nakamura, right? That her name, the very cute sprite like designer who no longer works for this company, and has moved off from this game. But I remember like that being her kind of like breakout moment. It was like her and friggin' Keanu last year. And so like one of my first thoughts is watching this is like I wonder what that game looks like now that she's not working on it. And seeing this, it was more first person action than I was expecting it to be, I guess. But it still had like sci-fi horror thriller kind of like visuals and stuff. Definitely doesn't seem like it's going to be up my alley, but I don't know what you guys thought about it.
I had some serious thoughts about it. So that was a game that was a highlight of my year last year at E3. Not just her, not just Ikumi San's or Nakamura San's like her energy that she brought to the stage that year, but also just the gameplay. It's like the gameplay trailer. I'm sorry, not the gameplay trailer. The cinematic trailer itself really reached out and touched me in a way that I thought was going to be very cool, very Bethesda, first person like or even third person like game about hunting these demons or like dealing with the supernatural events of the world that you're around. It looked super cool from that perspective. I do know that apparently from like what I remember at the time when Nakamura-san left Bethesda, in particular for this game. So she was originally the creative director, and then she was replaced on the project and left the company, which usually means that the company decided to go into a different direction with the game. So from what we saw here, which is the kind of, I think, the first anything we've gotten from the game since E3, it seems to have taken a different direction in. It feels less like the momentum of the first trailer was like horror, but with like stealth and action vibes to it. This game feels more like, from the gameplay that we saw, it feels like it might be a little bit more on rails, so to speak. Like definitely.
I didn't get that.
Oh, I got that. From like the narrow corridors that seem to be occupying it most of the time, you seem to be going into like going down a singular path. A lot of from the way that it traveled, like I could be totally wrong on that, 100% because of how little we know about it. But
I guess we might be confusing on rails and linear or something. Or like you say on rails, I think of like, Time Crisis or whatever, the arcade games that like you are on rails and you go through a certain trajectory and you can't break off of that, versus a linear path kind of game where you're good, like you can still move around within the path
I would say
afforded
linear
to you.
fits it better than under that.
Okay.
Kind of. I was looking for the word linear. I just couldn't find it, so I was saying on rails. My apologies. But yeah, no, it definitely felt like it was more linear than I think I was expecting it from its debut trailer, which is not surprising. Like that might have been the intention the entire time, but from the excitement that I knew coming into this, when next time I saw Ghostwire Tokyo, I may not be as big into it as I was before from its initial trailer, because when you change your creative director during the project, like I mentioned earlier, that means that it speaks volumes about the redirection of how the game's going to go. And I'm curious to see how it comes out. I still think it has a really cool aesthetic to it. I just don't know, what it has a different feeling than I anticipated from the original trailer, which is, it happens with games sometimes.
Yeah. Frank or Logan, anything to add?
I have no thoughts. I mean, it looked, again, like, my thoughts are basically like yours, where it looks neat if you're into this kind of style of game. I am very unlikely to pick it up. I feel like kind of for similar reasons to you, Trev, but definitely intense visuals, I think, is a good way to have described it.
Yeah. I was like, yeah, this is more thriller horror kind of thing. That's just not going to be my vibe. How about you, Frank?
Yeah, this one definitely looked interesting, and I definitely was kind of, as opposed to what the game we were talking about earlier. Like I was still drawn to the screen to watch it. I wasn't kind of like, oh, I need to go and kind of see what's going on Twitter. But I definitely it's interesting. But this is definitely one that really doesn't seem to connect for me, and this is another one I'll probably pass over during the PS5 time.
Yeah. Up next we have JETT: The Far Shore. Which gave me some No Man's Sky vibes.
For sure.
Coming out holiday 2020. And this is another one from our friends over, or being represented by our friends over at Pop Agenda. So I will see if I can pull up the email on that. If anybody has any other thoughts they want to jump in on this. I was like, just kind of gave you the feeling of like, oh, let's explore space kind of thing. Mm-hmm. Don't know what it's about beyond that.
I'm excited. I mean, it looks super cool to me. Like I'm excited for this holiday for this game. It's one that I can very easily see myself playing. Like if there's any sort of story to it at all, like I'm invested. I love the idea of, I love space in general, and so like I'm already kind of hooked on that. And then everything I saw in the rest of the trailer, I was all on board with.
About JETT: The Far Shore. JETT: The Far Shore invites you on an interstellar trip to carve out a future for people haunted by oblivion in this cinematic action adventure. As Scout and Anchorite May, be the first to deploy to a mythic ocean planet. Take the helm of a jet and explore a vast unknown. Skim low over waves, roar up pristine coastlines, and carve through otherworldly woods. Adapt to an intricate systemic open world, and persevere through adversity alongside an intimate ensemble in this story of courage, wonder, and regret.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm all over that. Everything about that pitch has me sold even more. Yeah, I mean, it's easily one of my favorite things I saw on this show, and that pitch one that makes me even more happy and confident in that.
Cool. Cam, anything from you?
Absolutely nothing.
Okay.
Not in a negative way. Like this is a point in I had to work at this part, so I missed this entirely.
Fair. Up next, we had Godfall, which was one of the first PlayStation 5 titles that we'd seen. I guess this was another that was another note that I did have on Ghostwire Tokyo, was just because of how we saw it last year. I assumed that was going to be a current gen title on Ghostwire Tokyo, so surprised me that it's going to be next gen here. But up here we have Godfall, which was one of the first that we knew that we were seeing kind of like next gen gameplay on that from the Game Awards last year, from Gearbox. Basically a third person hack and slash looter kind of game coming out holiday this year. I don't know if this does anything for anybody.
It doesn't for me, and this is another one where I feel like maybe I need to see more from it, but I feel like this is another one like I'm in like the demo for, in terms of like I love Gearbox and Borderlands, and I even love like hack and slash kind of things. Like I've talked about it before. Like I love Devil May Cry and like all these awesome like action games. And the whole time this trailer was going, it was just like, yeah, I don't know. Yeah, like I'm not even trying to be like a hater. It just the whole time it just didn't connect for me like at all. So like this is
the whole trailer kind of felt samey to me.
Yeah.
Where I was like, okay, I get it. We're attacking things, and I guess somewhere along the line we're getting new armor because the armor keeps changing or whatever, but like I didn't really see what any of that was doing to actually change the gameplay. It just felt like everything we were doing was just kind of like a hack and a light attack and a heavy attack kind of thing.
We'll see what happens. I'm holding out for it. If there's more to this game, that'd be awesome. I think the gameplay looked fine and looked like it could have like a lot of depth between weapon types. But we need more from this game before, because otherwise, like you mentioned earlier, it's just the same note throughout the entire trailer. I didn't get anything new from it. So.
Anything else, Logan?
No, I mean, we're in the part of the show, for me at least, where I think this is kind of one of the weaker stretches of the show. Like, again, like JETT I really loved, but like really from Oddworld through all the way up until when we get to like Hitman, JETT's again that like I was like, I'm here for this. I really enjoyed this. Other ones were just kind of like, okay, yeah, sure, like it looks neat. My thought.
Cool. Well, up next we had Solar Ash from Annapurna and Heart Machine,
yes.
and from the creators of Hyperlight Drifter. I threw in here that it had a Creature in the Well type of art style, only in like 3D or third person like action adventure instead of like the top down action adventure style that Creature in the Well was. Coming out 2021. It looked really pretty, and I know there are some people out there that really loved Hyperlight Drifter. I tried it like once or twice and just could never connect with it, so didn't really ever go that far with it. I don't know. I mean, this definitely didn't like do anything really for me.
Oh,
but
really?
Cameron, you definitely like jumped on this one. So.
Oh yeah, no, I was hot and horny for this game. Hyperlight Drifter, it's still a game I need to get to, years later. But from what I saw from it, like the gameplay and the aesthetic and the whole like everything they're doing with this is just 100% like straight up my jam, straight up my alley.
Cool. Logan or Frank?
I got none.
Yeah, Frank.
Yeah, this is another one that like I'm interested in it. I don't think I'm probably going to play it if it's from the Hyperlight Drifter devs, and that was a great game, but like that kind of like you said, like that didn't really like connect with me, and like I didn't get super deep into it, even though it looks beautiful. And I feel like this is going to probably end up in the same league where I'm like, wow, that looks really beautiful. It looks really awesome, but I'm just not going to dive in and get very far.
Yep. Well, up next we have Hitman 3, which in my reaction I was like early on I'm like, oh, is this a Hitman game? And then like we go into like the rest of the trial. I was like, oh no, it's not. And then like right near the end I'm like, oh no, it is a Hitman game. Trust your instincts, Trevor. Trust your instincts.
I had the opposite because I just watched the No Clip documentary on this studio and them making all the Hitmans, including like Hitman 1 and 2. Like the most recent ones, and so literally as soon as they show him with like you don't see his face, but you see the bottom of his like tie, and I was like, oh my god, more Hitman! Like,
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, this is going to be the end of this trilogy that IO Interactive has been kind of building. And I want to give a shout out to Reb Valentine, who on Twitter pointed out that 47 minutes in, this was the first game in this showcase that had a white male protagonist shown off.
I'm sorry. You're saying that Godfall from Gearbox wasn't the way. Sorry, I shouldn't say that.
I mean, like, I wouldn't.
We don't know.
None of those were actually like characters. They were just kind of like nameless blah avatars. So yeah, I thought her point there was a pretty cool one. That like everybody we'd seen up to this point was cats or people of color or women.
I did not realize that until just now that you said that.
Yeah.
Neither did I, but I also for me, I do think that's awesome as well. But I also think it's funny that they took the like extra effort to put Hitman, who's Agent 47, at the 47-minute mark. Like, I guess I'm gonna assume they did that on purpose. Like,
the editor of this video is just like, there's only going to be a small group of people that see this and understand it, but those that chef's kiss right there.
At this point, I might also just have misread her tweet and not read Agent 47 appropriately or whatever. But the point is, like, we're 17 games in, and this was the first game that had a white male protagonist being shown off. Going to come out January 2021, so they seem to be kind of gunning for that oftentimes slow start of the year in January. So shout out to them, and they kind of talk about it being like, oh, his most personal thing yet. I tried to get into the Hitman games. Like, I picked up the first Hitman once it was like sold as a whole collection instead of like the episodic nature that it originally released as. And I had some fun with it for like a weekend, but I was like, this just ultimately isn't my kind of thing. It's one that like I like watching like Let's Plays of and stuff. Like, I like watching people have fun with it more than I enjoyed playing it myself. So. Yeah, I don't know if anybody else has any Hitman thoughts.
I really loved Hitman Absolution, which is like a mildly divisive take among the Hitman like community, but I really loved the Hitman game. Hitman 1 and 2 are great. I'm excited for this. I'm excited, like, it'll give me excuse to like finally finish both Hitman 1 and 2, which I never finished either one, but like to finish both those to then get like the end of the story. Like, if this game actually has like is more narrative focused while still being a Hitman game, that's even cooler for me. That's always been one of like my like few kind of gripes with Hitman, is that like they have a story, but like a story in the sense of like of a 2005 video game in a lot of ways, and it's like I'd love to see them actually like try to like really do a really great story and narrative around Hitman and Agent 47 in like 2020. So if that's actually something they're kind of doing, I'm excited about that. But worst case scenario, it's gonna be great gameplay. It's gonna be a ton of fun. So yeah, I'm excited.
Yeah, they did talk about it being his most personal mission yet, or whatever. So
yeah, but like that's the thing. Like that could be like an actual thing, or that could be like just total like PR jargon. Just like
exactly.
It's like, all right, so
buzzy bullshit. Cool. Up next, we had Astro's Playroom. Well, actually, before we had Astro's Playroom, we had like a weird transition where they were like, push the PS button. And
yeah.
And I was like, because I was watching it on YouTube, I was like, if I was watching this on like my PlayStation, would something happen now? What, like, it was just a weird thing.
That was the thing for me. Like, because I watched it on my PS4 on my TV, and like I saw that happen, and because it lingered for like 5 or 6 seconds, and I was like, what?
So I think
that's, like I should like go towards it, and then like it went away before I could hit it, and I was like, that's bizarre.
I think that's like the start screen for the PS5, because it definitely mimics like the old like PS4 start screen. But I'm 100% with you guys, because like I don't know why they just popped that in the absolute middle of the conference. I thought they were gonna go into a demo of the dashboard. Like, I thought they were gonna like hit the home button, and then it was gonna show you what the PS5 looks like. Like, I thought they were gonna start like the dashboard, and they were gonna give you like a tour. And then they were just like, oops, that was a mistake we left in. Now on to the next game.
Yeah. So that led us into Astro's Playroom, which is basically the non-VR Astrobot platformer. So I'm very excited for that, because Astrobot Rescue Mission was one of my favorite games a couple years ago. And a wonderful VR title that very much I and many others talked about it as like feeling like the Super Mario 64 of VR. just because of how well they did kind of platforming in the VR space. So I'm excited that more people are going to get to kind of have fun with Astrobot's charm.
Mm-hmm. I mean, yeah. Again, for me, starting with Hitman 3, really to the end of the show, except for like 1 or 2 games, this is the best stretch of the entire show, I think. And like Astrobot is one for me where I obviously did not play it because I don't have a PSVR, but like when I saw this, so at first I was like, what is this? And then we went on, like I began to like recognize what it was more. I'm all in on this game. All caps, underline, bold. This game looks so cute and so fun, and like I love the quirkiness of all the characters. Like I'm 100% in this game, and will like be flying to Phoenix, Arizona shortly to just play it with Trevor Sarkey. I'm all in on this game.
Yeah. One more reason we don't need Knack in our lives is because we have Astrobot. Anything from you, Frank or Cam?
I know you expected to get a rise out of me, but I'm just going to be the bigger man, just like as our Lord and Savior Knack has taught me to be.
All right.
I mean, Cam, you're always the bigger man. Although
Whoa.
we'll see what happens.
Whoa!
Wow.
We'll see. No, I was also setting up the segue because you also got Ring Fit Adventure, so we'll see how that changes over time.
Wow, Trevor. Wow, like that, like low.
That's
man.
amazing.
Low.
That's so good.
Like I didn't think you could like get on your belly to crawl to get that low. But you did it. Congratulations. You might have like had
really
to get yourself a little trench to get that low for it, but you got that low. Good job.
Ah, man.
How about you, Frank?
Not for me on this one. Like I know Playroom and Astrobot make this mainly Astrobot. Were pretty big on PS4. Like they really hit home for a lot of people, and really it did probably a lot better than they thought. But yeah, this is definitely one of the ones. Like I believe from what I heard after the fact, like it's supposed to come with the PS5. So this is one of the ones that like everyone will have access to right off the bat. If I have that right, but this is definitely one I'll probably pass on anyways.
That definitely sounds possible because that was like Playroom was basically hey, it's an app that anybody can like pick up and play around with in the PlayStation 4 ecosystem. I never really did, so but yeah, that was kind of the introduction to the Astro characters there, the Astrobots.
It'll probably be
that's interesting if it ends up being like effectively like a pack-in.
Based on what it sounds like, I think it will be, and I think if anything, it'll probably be a good showcase of like what the PS5 can do in terms of like probably like the haptic feedback and 3D audio and maybe like ray tracing and stuff.
Yeah. That's because one of the big things about the PSVR game was how like ingrained that the mechanics of that game were with the both the DualShock in how like you use the touchpad for certain things and all and elements of that, and it just kind of worked as a good showcase for PSVR in the same way that like Tearaway did on the Vita, where it was just like here's the game that like all of these like weird little gimmicky things utilized the best. So yeah, I think that's a great point. Is that this will probably play around with a lot with the haptic feedback and the reactive triggers and all that kind of, or adaptive triggers and all that stuff, and the 3D audio and yeah, good call. Little Devil Inside. I loved this. This was probably like from just a pure joy element. This was probably my favorite trailer of the thing. In particular, because it had the best joke edit I think I've ever seen in a trailer, where they drop the bomb and it just smash cuts to the guy on the toilet. and I was just like,
you hear the plop.
You hear the plop, and I was just laughing from that moment in that trailer. Like it was very disparate styles going between like the more action side of the thing and the seemingly more like narrative side of the story. So I'm very interested to see kind of like how those all work together. But yeah, this was I'm very interested to see where this game goes from NeoStream Interactive. Yeah, Logan.
Utterly in love. Like this is easily my top 3 games of the show. It's honestly a strong contender for my favorite thing. This is like the most Wes Anderson game I've ever seen, and I'm so in love with it. I can't even be like it. I just from like the opening seconds to close of like this is a Wes Anderson ass video game, and I'm here for it actually. Yeah, I mean, I want to know more. I'm so excited to see like what this is like, but no matter what, I think it's gonna be funny. It's clever. It's very tongue in cheek. It's quirky. I love the animation style. Like I'm all in on this weird game, and like I honestly could just sit here and rant and rave about all day long about how like much of a pleasant surprise this was. And like again, this to me is like one of the best examples of like why I think this is such a great conference if you're into like indies or like those like mid-tier games, because I feel like in a regular conference this doesn't get any moments. Like maybe like something for like a 30-second pop or like a 1-minute pop, but like otherwise that's it. And like it having like it finding the time to get the moment it got here. Yeah, Little Devil Inside is, I'm all in on it.
Cam?
I'm super into it. It looks super cool. I like it a lot. From what, like, aesthetically what we saw, I'm really curious about how the game's actually going to play. Stoked. Pretty stoked.
Yep. Frank?
Yeah, I'm pretty much 100% on board with pretty much everything you guys have said. Like, I think it was a good trailer. Like, I think it kind of bounced between like the actiony side and the fun kind of like narrative kind of side and world they're going for, and just in general, I think it looked really interesting and really beautiful. And this is probably up there in terms of the interesting things I found in the conference, let alone like the things I would say like we didn't know about that just kind of showed up. Like a lot of the things I was hyped for, we either totally predicted or we just kind of knew we're going to be there or had like strong feelings of. And this is one of those things that just kind of came out of nowhere where I was like, oh, this actually looks really interesting, and I'm really excited to dive in and play around in this world.
Yep. Game number 20, NBA 2K21 from 2K and Visual Concepts. My note here was they're going all in on sweat physics. Because that's pretty much the thing that's the trailer seemed to be showcasing. Coming out fall 2020. Logan, I'll throw it to you as the NBA fan of us. The guy from the Pelicans, which I legitimately didn't even know was a team.
He also seemed like he didn't really want to give that intro.
No, the thing. So here are my thoughts about NBA 2K21. And it's less my thoughts about NBA 2K21 and more my thoughts about NBA 2K, and the fact that I was like, I'm in a very basketball...
There isn't a season right now?
I'm in a very basketball...
And they're still doing a game?
...mood right now. The Last Dance happened, Michael Jordan documentary, it's great, and there's nothing else to do. We're in a pandemic, guys. So earlier today, I think either before, like right before, right after this conference happened, like I just so happened, like, I think it was right before, like I just so happened to check, like, PS Plus stuff, because like I remembered that like Frank had said that like Call of Duty World at War was the game, so like I went and downloaded that, and then it was like what else is like discounted or whatever, and every single other sports series, like sports franchise that EA does, has like 50% or better discounts. Some of them have like 80% discounts, like NHL and like Madden and FIFA, like all these huge things all have massive discounts and are on sale right now. And I just kept scrolling on this being like, there's this sport and this sport and this sport and this sport. And like nowhere on the list is NBA 2K at all. And I was like, that's kind of weird. And then I went in and was like, I'm curious like what the price of it is. And like NBA 2K20 is like still $60. And I was like, okay, sure, fine. It's the newest model, fine, whatever. 2K19, still $60. And I was like, that's kind of weird, but okay. And then I went back to 2K18 and be like, maybe I'll just like look at this game and like, something to pick up. Also still $60. What the fuck is going on at EA where someone was like, we're just going to never lower the price of this one particular sports franchise that is not the most popular or the second most popular one, and we're going to make sure there's never a price cut on this one. It's bizarre and weird. This game looks fine. Zion looks very sweaty and very graphically, like graphic-wise, looks great. I'm sure it's going to be fine and fun. What is going on? Hopefully it's got a better story mode. What is happening with the pricing of these NBA 2K games is my big takeaway.
So
that actually...
Yeah, what's a bigger gaffe? Me confusing Sucker Punch and Insomniac, or Logan confusing 2K and EA?
Either way, like the point remains that like.
I wouldn't even like paying that much attention to that. I was just catching the sentiment behind the rant.
He said the EA games are like sports games are all on sale. It's like okay, but 2K,
they're like sports
2K...
franchise game, but like the basic point remains the same.
The sports games. The point I was gonna make is this is something that is something I noticed I noticed this, and I remember writing into Beyond about it back when like the Kind of Funny guys were still at IGN. Is one of the big concerns of like an all digital age is that unless the games are on sale, digital prices rarely go down. Like you rarely have a game like just, hey, it's no longer going to be a $60 game. Now we're only going to sell it for 20 or something like that. I remember Grand Theft Auto 5 for the longest time was still being sold as a $60 game on the digital storefront if you weren't buying it in one of the sales or something like that. So that's something that like your rant here just kind of like reinforces that some of the sports franchises will have those kinds of sales, but others it'll just be like, no, we're just gonna always leave it on the storefront at $60 because what the hell do we care? For me, if somebody wants to pay for it, they will.
For me, that's like a 2K thing though. Like most 2K games don't ever go down in price. I'm not even talking about like NBA 2K. I'm talking about like Grand Theft Auto, Rockstar. That's a 2K franchise. I think the only thing
Grand Theft Auto never went down in price because it's the best-selling game of all time. They had no reason to like lower the price on that, really.
Yeah, but
whereas like
NBA
2K18,
like that's good. Like here's the thing, that's a really good point as far as like NBA 2K18. I definitely see where you're coming from on that. But if you go back, like, I mean, I'm curious actually if we do some research here, if that's the case with all 2K franchises, they never drop price.
Yeah, I don't know. I like this whole conversation reminds me, because the PS4 was like so starved for games at launch, I actually picked up FIFA 14 and NBA 2K14. And I remember playing NBA 2K14 and just like giving up in the tutorials because like basketball games have gotten way too complicated. I don't have the patience for this. And so I went and played FIFA a lot more. And even FIFA was like, okay, this is like way more complicated than I'm interested in dealing with, but I was able to like at least do some kind of stuff in that compared to like I could barely friggin' dribble a ball in NBA 2K. And then later when I went back to WWE 2K a few years ago, kind of felt like the same thing of just like, okay,
also
this is way more complicated than it needs to be.
Not that it's really important. This can be the last note on a basketball game that's gotten way too much attention. But 2K Wrestling also had discounts in the place. Again, every single sport except for basketball had like crazy discounts. And I was like, what is happening right now? Like, why is it just this one sport? Like I was just so fascinated by like this bizarre, because like wrestling did. And like football, soccer, baseball, like all like every, and it was like, what is happening with just one sport? But anyway,
it's
Bugsnax.
If they think people will still buy it at that price, they'll do it. I guess. Capitalism.
Yeah.
No, but overall, I do think this is. I think we touched on this a little bit, but something I hope that's better with the PS5 going forward, especially with no future spoilers, but with like a discless version available. I hope we see prices on digital storefronts get better in terms of like what Logan's talking about, where you look up a game from 2 years ago and it's not just $60 constantly for no reason.
Because this is the thing, like not to really delve into this conversation on our like PS5 reveal event like thing, but like if 2K18 was $30, I might have considered like I'm not necessarily like. I probably wouldn't have ended up buying it, but I would have at least been like, oh, maybe, okay, sure. Like, I'll just get like an NBA game right now. And the fact that it was just like $60, though, was like, what? Like, what? And like, obviously, like, they can't know that every other sports game is going to be heavily discounted on the PlayStation Store. Like, they have no idea knowing that like everyone made a deal with like PlayStation, but like, it's even more glaring than that, where it's like I could literally almost buy like every EA Sports franchise newest version, because they were all like the 20, like FIFA 20, these kind of like the newest versions for each of them. I could almost buy all of them for less than it would cost me to buy 2K18. Not even that's wild. Like FIFA 20 and like 2K Wrestling, the newest version of that, and like
Trash game.
Madden and like all these things I could buy combined for essentially equivalent to 2K18. It's just like it was like particularly glaringly bad. And again, like they didn't have any foreknowledge that like FIFA would be 80% discounted, like Madden would be like 75% discounted, 2K Wrestling would be whatever it was. But it's like, man, like this is a bad look for you guys.
Yeah.
Anyway, and that's Logan Sports Corner for the episode.
Well, I'm glad I threw it to you for that then. Moving on, we had Bugsnax from Young Horses, the creators of Octodad. And basically the note I made here is you are what you eat. Because this was a cute little trailer where kicked off with a strawberry bug that just kind of like goes around. And then somebody eats it, and suddenly their hands turn into strawberries. And it was I would say maybe like a walrus type of character leading a safari. Anyway, it was a very cute and charming thing. This is one that like I saw a lot of people like really attaching to. There's another one that is this is the third of the Pop Agenda games from the presentation. I didn't include that in the notes, but. Yeah, very, very cutesy little thing. I don't know if this is something I'll ever end up playing, but I enjoyed what I saw of it. Anybody else have anything to add on that one? And did it like really latch onto it really?
No.
No?
Yeah, I'm with you guys on this one because like I have much love for the Octodad devs, and I know they found a lot of success with Octodad early in the last gen, so I hope they kind of get the same thing here. But yeah, this was definitely one that I was like, okay, like I don't hate it, but this is definitely one I'm not gonna like. It didn't connect with me, and I'm not probably gonna play it. It did give me some like a lot of Viva Pinata vibes, so I feel like it's cool. PlayStation's getting it's kind of like Viva Pinata kind of fun kind of game like that. But yeah, this is definitely one I'm gonna pass on.
Mm-hmm. Logan, anything from you?
No, I mean like I guess my only note is like it is a very kid game. Like that's the vibe I got. Like it seems very kid-friendly game.
Except for like the end of the trailer where like this monster thing attacks you.
That was the coolest
up
part.
Until then, I was like, this is like a 6-year-old game, and like not in like a derogatory way at all, but like it very much had that vibe, and I was like, okay, yeah, like I feel like a lot of games aren't necessarily made like that anymore, and so like it is interesting from that aspect, but otherwise, yeah, like this I think is like the obviously kind of the weak note I would argue from like the Hitman 2 onwards run.
Mm-hmm.
And even this still looks, I mean, fine. So
yeah, that did speak to like I would agree with that sentiment for everything except like the last 10 seconds of that trailer. Or I guess from like the guy coming on and being like, hey, I tried bringing the lantern with my wiener hands and it fell and now the town's on fire. Like I was like, okay, well that's an interesting note that I was not expecting from this trailer. And then like they leave and the camera stays on and like everything starts to turn dark and then this like monster creature starts like globbling up everything on the path to the camera and it's like, okay, well that was a weird way to end that trailer.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, everything else felt like super kiddie about it.
If the entire trailer was like that last part, I'd be 100% in.
I wonder if they're going for like a Minecraft sort of thing where like during the day it's sort of like really fun and cutesy, and then at night is like when the mobs come out and you get like the bad guys that are trying to like kill you. Like
I believe you mean like Dying Light.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, I would say both of those games I think are apt. Yeah. Up next, we had Shuhei Yoshida hopping in and being like,
I said that.
Yeah, before we we finish, here's a game that is near and dear to my heart, and I was like, oh, here it is, here's Bloodborne, and then like it came up, I was like, this kind of looks like Bloodborne. I was like, oh no, okay, this is Demon Souls. And so
for a second, I was like, is this Deep Down? Like I was like, are they bringing back Deep Down for the PS5?
I say it's near like. My thinking immediately went towards Bloodborne because Bloodborne was famously one of like Shu's like I think his second platinum trophy after the Hannah Montana game that like Greg and Colin had sent him years and years ago from Beyond, and so I know he has since like want to say he just platinumed like Neo or Neo 2 or something like that, or no, Sekiro maybe.
It was Sekiro.
Like he's gotten like super into those kinds of games. I'm like, good for you, Shuhei. So yeah, this was the long rumored another like worst kept secret in gaming, Blue Point's games remaster remake of Demon Souls here with Japan Studio. I like Cam. I will throw to you. I think as the Souls expert here. What do you think of this one? How'd it look?
So I have to say at the beginning, there were two prevailing things, because there was a stupid, dumb rumor that went out that Legend of the Dragoon was going to be remastered and showed off here. I caught wind of it just before like the conference started, and so when I saw some of like the environments, I was like, "There's no way they're going to do this, right? They won't do it," and they didn't. They gave us Demon Souls, which is definitely like the worst kept, like you mentioned, one of the worst kept secrets. This was going to be here. I am very ecstatic for this game. However, like on Twitter, I think it was Cam Hawkins who put out. He goes, "Hey, are there spiders in this?" And immediately I got like PTSD flashbacks to this game, and like this game is 100%. I'm pumped for this game. It's gonna be really cool. I don't know if I have the same masochistic like spirit that I had back when I first played it. Because this game is like, I'm really curious how they remastered. I'm curious how they do it. Because if it's just a graphical upgrade, I don't know how well this game will be received, because as the first of the Souls-born genre, there's a lot of like quality of life improvements that have been made since it came out, that I don't think people would be as forgiving if it came out the way that it is now, that it exists on the PS3. That being said, I could also see a strong contingent of people being upset if they don't leave it the way it is, as far as like mechanics go. I'm kind of in between. I really love the quality of life mechanics that Bloodborne and Dark Souls 3 gave us, so I would be really interested in seeing them go for it again with this, just another way of tackling it. But I would also love to see, that was my main point. I would love to really see how they would approach this game with their more up-to-date aesthetics about like what you'd want to see from this game and mechanics that you want to see from it. Like, have this be the next Souls game. It might be the environment and story of Demon Souls, but what is the next, like, what is this a PS5 generation Souls game look like and play like, and how is this going to go? I would like to see that more than just a simple remaster. So
it looked like, from what I saw tangentially, I wasn't paying too close attention to this, but it looked like remake was the term being thrown around. So a little bit more polished maybe than a straight up remaster.
It looked like this was from the ground up, like completely remake, at least from what I could see. Especially with Blue Point, I assume that's what they would go for.
It would have to be, because like the infrastructure of Demon Souls, there's a reason why they haven't ported Demon Souls over anywhere. Because as anybody who, I guess, Blue Point's the only studio that I know has like taken a PS3 era game and like remastered it to the point where it's actually like really considered great. So I don't know, like, we'll see.
I have much love. So I don't have the connection to Souls or even Demon Souls itself, but I have much love for Blue Point. And like, if anyone's remastering a game, I think they're, to use a bad term, I guess, I think they're the masters of remastering or remaking like a game. Like, I think that like that's like absolutely what they do, and I have so much faith in them on that, at least. And just like looking at the screenshots, it looks like this is a completely different game. Like, even just from I definitely think this is one of those things where they came in and they were like, from the ground up, we're going to make this game, but this has to be the spirit and obviously some of the content of like the original. So I have a lot of faith in the studio, but I know I'm not necessarily someone speaking from a point of like love for the Souls franchise.
Yeah. Well, let's move on to Deathloop. We got to see first gameplay from this. This is another one that kind of got introduced at Bethesda's showcase last E3. This was Live Die Repeat number 2. And my first note, really listening to it, was like, Dave Fennoy was the voice of the guy in the first trailer that we got last summer. So I wrote, like, where did Dave Fennoy go? Because this definitely did not sound like Dave Fennoy playing the main protagonist anymore. But I am all in on the Dishonored looking gameplay and the style of what this one looked like. So this is probably another one that like is in my top tier from this showcase. One of the ones I'm most excited for.
I agree.
I think this was my favorite game from the showcase, especially at least in terms of. So I had heard after the fact, and even what you said there, like it was announced before. I completely don't remember this game. Like today was the first time I feel like I really was like exposed to this, even though I definitely watched that conference, so I must have seen it. But like watching it now, like that trailer hits, like that really hit for me in terms of like the aesthetic and the gameplay, and like I love Dishonored 1 so much, and I have so much respect for Arcane. But like the thing with me is like I don't love stealth, and that's why like with Dishonored I played it so much like an action game where I did the path where you basically kill everyone and kind of get almost like a worse ending. But like even doing it as an action game, it was still super fun. Like they nail so much of like exploring a world and like interacting and being able to pick things up and throw. You pick up a vase and like throw it at somebody and then just stab a bunch of people and like shoot a gun and like do these crazy sequences that like aren't possible in other games. And for me, I'm just so excited to see them basically like take that concept and be like, we're going to put that in an action game or some more of like an adventure type thing where you are really like in combat constantly or running from place to place. And it is cool to see kind of the Deathloop thing worked in, even though that it was weird to me how many games have that same concept in the same kind of conference. But I definitely like I'm 100% on board with Deathloop, and I think this is like the thing that really kind of blew me away during the conference.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cam? Okay, yeah, go ahead, Logan.
No, I mean, I would just say that this, along with Little Devil Inside, is easily in my top 3 games. Like I'd argue it's maybe my game of the show, certainly right up there. I'm somebody who's never played an Arcane game, even. Like, I've never played Dishonored. I've never played anything the studio's done, and so haven't been somebody who's always been fascinated. Has been told that like I will like those kind of games, the aesthetic, just the general idea, the loop of it all. It's like, oh yeah, I am just everything about this sounds super fun, super enjoyable. I love the idea of like kind of pulling back and like figuring out the kind of larger conspiracy, what's happening, how to like break the cycle. Like, yeah, I am totally on board for Deathloop. Like, it looks like a ton of fun. I want to know when it comes out. I want to know when I can play it. I want to know just all the things about it. It is a fantastic looking video game. Arcane is very, very talented. Somewhere Quinn Hoffman is very happy in the world. And these are all just good things. So.
Yeah. Okay. Any final thoughts on Deathloop there?
I agree with what everybody else has said. I'm very excited for it. I'm sad Dave Fennoy is not returning for the voice, but there's no such thing as perfection in life. Yeah.
Where?
All right.
Yeah, I know we're gonna move on, but Cam, where for you? Like, does this fall in like the top of the show for you too, or is this just kind of somewhere in the middle or at the bottom?
Top tier for me. I know we're kind of long in the tooth on this one, so unless I have something really that I feel like I need to say, I will just be deferring to you guys because you know how long-winded I can get.
Fair enough. We got 3 more games. You got Resident Evil Village, the long-rumored, kind of leaked whatnot, Resident Evil 8 basically, from Capcom here, coming out 2021, featuring werewolves and creepy village, kind of like definitely the follow-up to the Resident Evil 7 from a couple years back. This up anybody's alley?
Yes.
Oh yeah, Resident Evil 7 was my runner-up for Game of the Year it came out.
Okay.
Yeah,
so, yeah, absolutely.
I'm totally with you guys because like I think Trevor and I have talked about this a little bit in the past. Like I don't have a huge connection to the Resident Evil franchise, but I absolutely loved RE7. And as soon as this was like, hey, this is RE8 and we're keeping with the first person and we're going to be doing a lot of the same stuff, I was like, yep, you 100% have me. I'm definitely here for this.
Cool. Anything to add there, Cam?
Yes, I'm very excited for it. I will say, Capcom should just really find a design for Chris Redfield and like stick to it.
I agree with that.
However, if they
Yeah.
are going to choose one, I nominate this one. He is a thick boy, and I love him.
He is thick.
He's
He is
also an
thick.
old boy.
Yeah, he's an old thick boy with like 6 C's, man. That like
I mean,
you see his
again, like-
neck, it was like tree trunk thick.
The timeline of Resident Evil is make believe, and like not even like where 7 takes place is just like it's like essentially like a reboot basically. But like if they wanted to have them all be in like the same continuity, like this would be like 20 plus years after Resident Evil 1. So like he could be older and it would make sense. But again, their timeline is make believe. It's just gibberish.
I think
Yeah,
they
fair.
ever since they exited out of like 5 and 6 not really being part of the universe anymore.
Yeah.
With the reboots with 1 and 2 and now 3. So
It's just like I'm totally with you guys, especially because even Logan's like, yeah, like the timeline's totally made up, and I mean, yeah, it's a video game, but the only thing that slightly bothers me is that like he's in the end of 7 and he looks completely different. Like it's like like they just had a character model for Chris Redfield 2 years ago, and now they just redid it, and I'm just
they
like,
redo
that's my
Chris
own
Redfield.
tangent.
They redo his model so much more than anybody else's model in any other game. Like there's like
Well, 'cause in
15
it-
different versions of Chris Redfield's model.
Because like every version of like Leon looks the same. Like it's like that is Leon. I can tell this is who this person is. Whereas like Jessica Cogswell had a great tweet of just like this is just a generic white guy, and so it just changes with the times. What does a generic white guy look like in 1987? This is what it looks like in 2020, and just everything in between. Generic white guys, Chris Redfield.
Generic white guy's coming out thick in 2020.
And how dumb are you all gonna feel when they have like an in-canon story reason that it's never been the same Chris Redfield? They're all clones, and they all are,
He's
are
Big
nemesis
Boss.
versions of Chris Redfield.
Don't
or
even
something like
don't
that.
even start with
I
this,
hope-
Trevor. It's because that could happen.
I hope that's what it is. Because the best part of that is that like that's the shittiest cloning machine ever. None of them look like the actual. It's like it'd be the best thing
Maybe-
ever. I would love that.
No, how
like
dare
the
you put
clone
that
comes
evil
out 30
out?
years older.
Yeah, the clone comes out 30 years older. Yeah, Frank. No, that Trevor, how dare you put that out into the universe? How dare you just like let that leave your mindscape and just like become a thought that could form in other people's minds, and now it can become a reality? How dare you?
Enjoy.
He's pro-
Enjoy. You can have that one for free, Capcom.
He's probably right though. Like it's probably the Umbrella Corporation and their fucking cloning machine that they're just gonna add suddenly.
Up next, we have another Capcom game, which wasn't like posted as Capcom. I pulled this from basically the press release from PlayStation. Pragmata, which like looks like a fucking Kojima game. Like
I thought it was straight up Death Stranding at first.
I
I thought this was Death
I thought
Stranding.
this was like the Lumens game or whatever, because like that the astronaut guy looks like that Lumens astronaut thing that is the Kojima Productions
there's
kind
a
of
lot of
logo
differences.
character. And then all the
Reason we're
stuff
a lot pretty liberal
around
there.
it, yeah. All the equipment is absolutely Death Stranding looking equipment. Even the little girl looks like ripped out of Death Stranding kind of animation and design. So, and then you get into like weird world bending, twisty stuff and like hologram cats and stuff. This was another cat appearance here, and then they end up on the moon looking at Earth, and I was like, yeah. How is this not a Kojima game? This is like you put it as Capcom. I don't know why you wouldn't say it's a Capcom / Kojima production, but like this, I'm pretty sure is a Kojima production coming 2022. And I was like, I don't know what the fuck this is about.
So it looks like this is the game from the guy from that dev from Dead Space, the Dead Space dev that said that he's gonna like his game was gonna be debuted at the PS5 reveal.
And he hasn't confirmed which
Is
one
this
it is,
the
right?
writer who said he's been working on something for a couple years.
Yeah.
And unrelated, you should watch the PlayStation 5 event. Is that guy?
Yeah, it's that guy. So all the game like this is the only game that like, and this is the thing. This one like that outfit actually reminds me a lot more of the original Dead Space outfit. With the way that it works and operates. No, the reason I say they're quite different as far as like the Lumens astronaut versus the one that we saw in this trailer is because I saw somebody tweet and like do a side by side, and there's some pretty stark like differences between them. But I will also say, if you had not seen that tweet, totally understandable that you would be like, yeah, that looks like the same guy.
And also, you realize we just got done talking about how Crest Redfield gets redesigned every 2 years.
100%.
So
Yeah.
it's completely possible that the Lumens figure from Kojima could be redesigned here.
Sure. The thing that I would point out though is that the helmet, like a lot of the design of the astronaut's outfit in this game, looks very similar to like a lot of the different like features and like aesthetics of the Dead Space like protagonist's outfits through 1 through 3. So that's all I would say about that. It looks cool as far as like kind of like mind bendy a little bit. Granted, I'm the one that gave like Death Stranding an 8 out of 10 on our website, so you know how I feel about these things.
Yeah, that's fair. Frank or Logan, anything to add on Pragmata?
I still believe Kojima is doing something with the game.
I'm totally with you guys, because I definitely thought this was like a Death Stranding DLC or something, or like some kind of port, and then like it definitely seems very Kojima like influenced, or like that's what they're trying to go for. And like this is one of those things, like it was interesting, but I would need to see more from this, and at least at the moment,
I have no idea what the
definitely-
game
this
is.
is
Like,
another
that's
one I'm
what
gonna
Trevor,
pass
yeah.
on.
Yeah. Last up, we have Horizon Forbidden West closing out the show, which Horizon 2 Forbidden West, with the setting in San Francisco with the Golden Gate Bridge, just like I predicted, even though it's not one of my official predictions. Fuck you, Cameron. And yeah, it's kind of, again, like, I don't know when or where the idea of like Horizon being one of the, like the PS5 flagship showcase titles came from, and so like if we had like walked away from today like and it didn't show up anywhere, I would have been like, yeah, that serves everybody who's just been taking it for granted that Horizon was going to be here today. Would serve them right, but it was here. Looks friggin' beautiful.
Yeah.
And I love the like. We'll see what the underwater gameplay actually looks like, but I love like the idea that like they kind of introduce like, oh hey, the coral reefs were saved from like the world destroying itself and everything like that, and just like the vibrancy of this. A lot of the new creatures look really cool, including like I commented when I was reacting. You got like freaking Lord of the Rings Oliphants out there. The giant robo
Elephants,
like elephant creatures.
So cool.
Looked really awesome. And yeah, just like really cool seeing Aloy and Silence also they're back. And yeah, I'm all in on Horizon, as I knew I would be.
I gotta replay
so
it.
I was excited to see it here.
I gotta replay Horizon. After seeing this trailer, it's like, man, I forgot how much I loved that game. Like I'm stoked for it. It looks great. I'm super excited to see where they go with it. Also, correct me if I'm wrong, and it's because it's been so long since I played the game. Didn't the nanobites, do they eat artificial or like synthetic material? Do they eat just like everything? Because I thought they ate organic material. Like they ate basically, like they devastated and ate away everything that existed.
I thought it was just like
Yeah.
metals, like the stuff that like humans had like created and manufactured, like
No, 'cause
trees and stuff.
those
were
remained
fine.
though. Like
Yeah, no, it was like they ate organic material.
That's what
and
it was,
stuff.
yeah, so-
but they might not have like gotten into the deep seas and stuff.
That's possible. Yeah. Well, no, because I remember them saying like it was like eating dolphins and stuff. So I
I mean-
recall that, but I could be totally wrong. Like I'm saying, this is from 4 years ago.
I mean the whole idea is like life has started coming back basically
Yeah.
anyway, and they talk about it in the trailer. It's like new life returned or something like that. And it is like the things we see are life, but slightly different and tweaked and whatnot.
So cool.
Life found a way, just like the handful of humans did, and all that stuff in the in-game world. Frank, anything from you?
Not a ton on this one. Like I definitely anticipated this to be something at the show, like or at least like it's been so long rumored to exist. I assumed it would kind of be here. And I'm like, we don't need to get deep into it, but I'm not like the hugest Horizon fan in the world, and I'm hoping, if anything, this is like an Uncharted 1 to Uncharted 2 situation, where it's like, hey, we really understand what you were going for, but now you really nailed it, and this is like a really great game. So I'm down to even give it a chance, and I definitely want to see more from it. But at least at the outset, like, I'm not like, this isn't my most anticipated PS5 game, or even something that's like super on my radar. And like, if anything, I'm just excited to see more from it, or kind of hear more about it going forward.
Logan, anything from you?
I feel like I'm somewhere in between Frank and the rest of you, right? Like, I liked Horizon a lot. My biggest complaint with Horizon was kind of infamously the fact that I thought Aloy was kind of just an asshole character. Certainly in the first like half of that game, I think I just didn't love her personally. So like, I'm excited to see, especially given how Horizon 1 wraps up and like the story arc she kind of closes on in that game, which I think is actually super beautiful and super poignant, where she goes from there and where the kind of the narrative goes from there. Visually stunning, just so full of like vibrant color. Like, I cannot stress enough how colorful and beautiful this game looks. So I'm super excited to see that. I'm excited for something like this on next gen, and so it's pretty exciting that we're going to get it presumably within the first year, you'd have to imagine.
Yeah, they did not put a date on it, so
Yes.
the idea of it being a launch title seems pretty scarce at this point.
Yeah,
which is unfortunate.
But I'm excited either way, and yeah, it is a great looking video game.
Yeah, I'm real excited for it. Horizon was, I think my game of the year. The year came out.
I'm almost positive it was. Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds right. Because I was very much on the Horizon train instead of the Breath of the Wild train, as is well documented on the internet. So yeah, I'm very much looking forward to seeing kind of the next chapter here. And yeah, just look beautiful, and it's going to look really good, and play real fast, I imagine, on the PS5. So that was it for the games, and then they rounded us out with a very artistic, like all throughout the whole thing, you had like all these weird little interstitials that were just kind of the sacred symbols in various forms and
It was beautiful.
artistic kind of portrayals and whatnot. And so we wrap it up here with the console reveal of the white PlayStation 5. A couple different options. There's a disc and discless option, digital only option, and they also had a few little accessories that they showcased as well. Basically, the PlayStation 5 family of accessories and consoles. So, what everybody think?
Blew my mind. A discless PS4 or PS5? What? Like, I know that's something that we're like, well, eventually we'll get to this point where they'll start selling them without an optical drive. But for it to be like happening, insane. It really, like, that to me says next gen more than anything else about this.
That's interesting because there's already an Xbox One that is that, right?
Yeah, but that's like the whole thing about that was like that's considered
infamously the Xbox Xbox One sad edition.
Yeah, like that's the whole point. Well, the whole point about the Xbox One S is that it's such a that's not the only thing that it's missing, or that's not the only thing about it that makes it pretty weak as a console. Like, there's a lot about the Xbox One S that I think is inferior, but the idea that it might be like, it stands as equal to the regular PS5 to me is like, is it going to be like the less expensive option by about, $60-$80 maybe? But I like the idea that they're going to keep the optical drive, because obviously there's areas in this world that have terrible internet, like the United States of America. As we've seen tonight, like in the Discord call. There is a lot about the aesthetic of it that I just love. I love the idea of this. I thought it would be aesthetically still designed similar to the PS4, but
which was crazy in hindsight. Like,
yeah.
we'll get to that.
Yeah, but because I just think that like it's so like the PS4 and PS4 Pro model and design is like to me very sleek, but at the same time still very like optimal for like what you would want out of like optimal spacing for stuff. But I love the design of the PS5. I think it looks gorgeous. Um, I think it had like there have been some really fun memes and funny jokes on Twitter already about it, but it all feels
Hmm.
like in good jest versus like when the Xbox One came out and people realized that XB1 spelt out that way, spelt Xbone. That did that, and then afterwards it became known as the Xboner on the internet. So like that, like I'm glad to see like there's some good fun ribbing on the corporate aesthetic, but I loved it. I loved the reveal of it. I thought it was really really cool. The fact that they're going with that white on black look, sexy, just sexy as hell.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. I thought I like the kind of curves inherent in the design, and it like it looks like, especially kind of up against the Xbox Series X, which I think is also a fine design. But like the Xbox Series X is very utilitarian. It is like this is the box. We don't really like. We know you're not going to be like just staring at this box. But like PlayStation kind of came and said like they kind of like revisited the curves of the PS3 era and stuff like that, and said like, hey, yeah, it's a thing. It's a tool that you'll have on your entertainment system and can look nice on your entertainment system as well. So yeah, I really dug the design of it.
It's like they're like, hey, you know how we used to be curvy and then we got angled? What if we were both angled and curvy? PS5.
Yeah. Frank, anything to add?
Yeah, like I definitely dig it. Like it kind of like I had to look at it for a second, and especially like with the controller, I feel like they match better than just showing like one by itself in kind of a weird way. But like I seeing the two together is definitely like I was like I do like this, and I even said like yeah, like kind of like you said, I was like this is sexy, like this is sleek, and honestly, this is like the first time I've probably ever seen a console and been like damn, like we're in the future. Like this looks
Mm-hmm.
like something you would see in God, I know this is a weird reference, but going back to like 20 years ago when like iRobot came out, this is a console you'd see in iRobot is like, hey, this is the console this is the PS9 or PS6 or whatever existed in 2020, whatever. And at this point, I'm like, yeah, like we're really they went for like a really sleek, modern, interesting design, and I feel like they were really almost going for like, hey, what's the future and like what's different than something we've done before, or like slightly different. Honestly, though, the only other thing I'm kind of concerned about is like I like the design a lot more than like the PC tower that Xbox is going with, but I'm almost more concerned on the PlayStation end where I'm like, how is this going to run, and like are we still going to have this fan problem of it sounding like a jet engine, and like is there going to be like
Clean your
overheating problems?
PS4. If it sounds like a jet engine, clean your PS4.
That's a very valid point, but even that doesn't like completely fix the problem for a lot of people. Even if you put new like thermal paste on there too, like it like you can do a lot of things to help, but it doesn't completely fix it. And I'm hoping with the design of the PS5, they really took a lot of that into account, which I would assume they did, or at least based on some of the things they said, it sounds like. But just looking
Yeah,
at
I'm
the
pretty sure part of Cerny's whole thing was like they talked about like, yep, we're definitely working on trying to make it a quieter system, in how they designed the architecture and the infrastructure of it. So yeah, it's I mean obviously like we won't know until it's been sitting on our systems for years probably, but I have faith that it'll be fine. Logan, anything from you?
I think it looks great. I mean, again, my note is simply that console though with 5 exclamation points. I think it's sleek. I think it's modern. I think it's futuristic. Like I love the look of it. I love the white on black. I think the controller looks great. I think it is one of the best looking, like just visually best looking consoles ever made. Like I think it's just a very striking, visually impressive video game console. I think the PS4 also is. So I think they're on. I mean, like I would argue to the shock of nobody, they're making these things look better as time goes on. Like I think the PS1 is the ugliest, and then the PS2, and then the PS3, and then like we're getting better looking as it goes on. Yeah, I mean it's great. Like again, my big thing, and this could arguably be like the transitionary bridge, is that like it's beautiful, it's great, I love it. The digital edition is awesome, and it's such a cool like potential like transformative moment. But there's no price and there's no date. We'll get to that in a second. That was my like the one thing at the end was like just say one of these two things at least, and I didn't say either one. But otherwise, it is a beautiful looking console. Yeah.
Yeah, that's one of the things that I pointed out as a tweet after the fact is that like when the Switch was revealed, it wasn't revealed with a price and release date. Those came a couple months later, and so I imagine it's the same kind of thing here. Like we'll get a price and a release date in the coming months. Even like the original PS4 wasn't revealed, or like the PS4 reveal was like. It was the February event was the reveal, and then you didn't get a price and release date until E3 that year. And we're just seeing, I think, those cycles become narrower and narrower. That, like, and I after our episode, or after we recorded our predictions and stuff, I ended up like thinking to myself, I was like, I'm really glad that Logan took the price and release date announcements as predictions, because I don't think like. I went into today thinking we're not going to get those today. We're going to get those in a month or two. Today is going to be all about like, let's talk about the games, let's see the games, and we'll show you the box as like food for thought for the future.
I forgot.
And yeah, like I mean, more information is always better, sure, but yeah, I just didn't think we were going to get any of that today in the grand scheme of things after I thought about it more.
You guys remember 2 hours ago when we talked about Gran Turismo and about the audio issue, or like that some people were having? It's probably because the rest of you guys didn't send Mark Cerny a picture of your ear.
Speaking of Mark Cerny, we'll dive into let's talk about the predictions we had made.
Predictions real quick. I also started tallying up like what I think the rough score breakdown is, right? So like,
okay,
you want me to run through these?
I mean, sure, yeah. I'm looking at the doc from Monday, so I didn't see any of your notes in there. But
I wrote them on just like on paper next to it. So like, okay. So Cameron.
Okay. You want to drive this? Okay.
Okay, it doesn't matter either way. But Cameron had his Knack 3 thing, which in and of itself did not happen. But just to be clear, for a
honestly,
second podcast,
I want you to give him a negative point for just putting us through that.
Negative points have never been part of any scale like these. How dare you, sir?
So you guys are telling
we're breaking new ground here.
You guys are telling me that Mark Cerny did not literally murder a man live on stage.
This is the thing, because Frank wasn't on the podcast. It wasn't that Knack 3 itself which started a reach, but it was the fact that Mark Cerny literally had to kill a man for the tease, and also quote Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. He had
on a Mayan temple. He had to climb up to the top of a Mayan temple and sacrifice an intern from PlayStation.
Soliloquy from Cameron Abbott about this, and like even he was like, and just to be clear, I only get the full point if this happens. It did not happen. Like Trevor said, I'm also tempted to break new ground and give negative points.
I think that's fair.
I don't think that's fair at all.
That is a majority democracy.
Come on,
beautiful.
guys, come on.
Minus 1 points for Cameron Abbott on that.
Hey, how dare you, sir?
And forever will be known as the sacrificial lamb of this podcast.
To be fair, if that happened, I would say bonus points. Like if that happened and you called it, I would say bonus points. If it happened,
you'd have got bonus points. Cameron's second prediction, though, is where he kind of comes back into the positive here, where he had Horizon 2 is revealed in some capacity. That obviously happened. Comes out during the release window. This is the one where I think that is unlikely to happen. I don't
think that can qualify as a point, positive or negative, to take away from it, because we didn't get a release window of the console.
So because Horizon 2 is coming out, you got that part on the money bang and not the release window, I was going to give you a half a point for it.
Well, I would say we don't know if it's going to be part of the release window.
That's why you get half a point.
We know that the release window of the console is this year.
Yeah.
We know that it's coming out 2020. We didn't get a date for Horizon 2. Yeah. So I think
you get a half point. I think it sounds fair, right?
We going off of what we know today, which is all we can do. We can't like wait 6 months to see, hey, did Horizon actually come out in the release window?
Hell, I'll give you 3/4 of a point if you want, Cam. Like, you know what I mean?
I'll take 3/4 of a point.
All right. Next, you had teraflops, that we talked about, as well as their storage capacity, will be between 1 to 5 teraflops. Trev, also important to note, bet they won't, and he bet Portillo's on you. So first off, Cameron didn't get the point. Second off, Trevor is about to get some free Portillo's. And third off, mid-podcast when we recorded this, we realized the fact that they had already said that it was going to be less than a teraflop. So it was just one that was pretty much doomed from the start.
Terabyte is the storage. Teraflop is the power behind it.
Yeah.
No teraflops. So
there were no teraflops, which is the whole thing. I said they'll discuss the capacity.
You said, and I quote, teraflops will be talked about.
Yep, and they do not.
It was,
they did not
and that's
teraflops.
Part of this is you confused, because Cameron had said it will be between. Cameron said storage will be between 1 and 5 terabytes for storage, and you just wrote it in here as teraflops. But still, yeah, as was pointed out, I don't think we realized it during the show, but it was pointed out afterwards, as I saw Zyger pointed out. Yeah. Basically, it was like, hey, they've already said that it's going to be 825, gigabyte SSD is the storage, and I was like, oh, I didn't know that means it's not going to be a 1 terabyte storage or whatnot. So, but apparently that's what that means. So.
I totally missed that announcement of the SSD. So,
but yes, the bottom line of this one is I'm going to get free Portillo's.
Yes, no point.
Which, hooray, because I gave Cameron so many goddamn free Portillo's back when we did wrestling bets. So at least
no
I got this one.
For Cam on that one. His fourth and final prediction was console will be shown and it'll be white, which is unquestionably true, which means he gets 1 point on that, which added with his negative 1 point and his 3/4 of a point means he ends with 3/4 of a point for the predictions.
I want a caveat and asterisk on this. It is in protest that I lost a point.
Oh, well, it's unfortunate.
Because losing a point has never been documented before.
Well,
I will be appealing to the higher court on this.
I want to protest that I had to sit through your soliloquy on the sacrifice, not once but twice, because I went and edited the episode.
I will also protest that nobody's ever predicted that a manslaughter will happen on stage. It's only happened before.
I think you're not even manslaughter, just straight up first degree.
First degree, yeah. There was intent behind it. He was prepared for it. It's first degree murder, for sure.
Renee is next. Renee's not here on this podcast, but Renee did have the most colorful predictions, I will say. Dead or Alive Beach Volleyball 5 with improved jiggle will be announced. That did not happen, tragically. Way too much attention to the haptic controller. 7 exclamation points. It sucks. I don't feel like way too much attention was paid to it, just like attention was paid to it personally. So I'm going to say no points on that.
I agree with that from my end.
It was like they didn't bring it up. They brought it up 3 times?
I think twice.
That was about it. Yeah. Spyro launch title, brand new story, named Dragon's Fury or something like it. Also did not happen, unfortunately. And finally, is my mic on or mic not working moment as a joke? Also did not happen. So Renee tragically ends with 0 points for his predictions.
I did not come in last place.
You did not come in last place. Trevor predicted a Soulsborne remaster collection, Demon Souls and Bloodborne, made by Bluepoint. Trevor, you had the most complicated prediction in this because it's like...
it's like a 0.5, right? Like, you got half of it?
Yeah, I would argue half a point.
No, because a Soulsborne collection would be 3 games.
No, he very much specified that it would only be Demon Souls and Bloodborne is the thing. Like, he specified in particular it would be just those 2 games.
Okay, if that's the case, then yes. Okay, I'd say...
I'm saying half a point, ultimately.
That's fine. I would maybe want to push for, at most, if I really gave a shit, I would say, let's go 2/3, because I also nailed that it was the Blue Point, but... I'm fine with half a point.
Half a point for that, then.
I would actually argue 2/3 for sure. Blue Point is a solid point on it.
I can move 2/3.
I'm okay. I'm cool with that because he is right. Like, it is Blue Point, it is Demon Souls. Really, the only part that's not there is Bloodborne. And I'll even give him. He specifically said they're not going to do any of the Dark Souls, so that he is kind of pretty much all the way there.
Yep.
It was three key elements were Demon Souls, Bloodborne, and Blue Point, and I got 2 of the 3.
So I'd say 2/3.
2/3 of a point. Number 2 was Gran Turismo is announced. Have you heard about this controller audio, though, guys? And I would argue that's a full-fledged point all the way. That's a 1 point.
100%.
Yeah, that's a 1 point.
Hooray!
A more complicated one is Spider-Man T's only playable on PS5. Peter and Miles together. We don't know if Peter is in the game.
Well, he was doing the voice, right? Like
So-
he's the one talking to Miles in the,
But is
in the
it a
narration.
narration?
But we don't know if we
Yes.
don't know if he's playing or not.
So
And
I will
also,
say.
I would go on a limb and say there's a good chance that this will also be on PS4.
So I was going to give you
Ooh.
3/4 of a point. If you think it's on PS4, we can go to half a point. But I feel comfortable with 3/4 of a point for this.
I'd say half a point.
I would argue
Any arguments?
that it is a PS5 because they made a point of saying like everything you're going to see from here on out is PlayStation 5,
But-
and this was the first thing that we saw that was included in that.
It doesn't mean it's also not on PS4 though, and I'm kind of, I
True.
don't. To be fair, they didn't announce it or say it, which makes total sense. But I am kind of with Cam. I didn't think about it up until he literally said that. But I'm like, oh, there's literally no reason they couldn't put this on PS4 as well, especially if it's built off of regular Spider-Man.
Do we want to give him
I'm
only
gonna-
half a point then?
I mean, keep going. I'm gonna look and see if they've released any kind of like press
Please
release
do.
on it.
Please
We'll
do
put a
check on
question
that.
mark
Yeah,
next
if
to
it
that.
has-
Number 4 for Trevor Starkey was Knack is back, but not in Knack 3.
Yeah, this
in
one's just a no.
PlayStation All Stars
0
2
points here.
with Kratos, Drake, Ellie, and other characters. Unfortunately, that is a 0.
That's what I get for putting anything behind Knack.
Trevor, for real though, Trevor's points total is currently in limbo as he finds out what they said about Spider-Man. So we'll move on to myself.
If they were gonna do
Um,
PlayStation All Stars though, I feel like now was the time, right?
That was the time.
Yeah,
I agree.
It's
I agree.
it's never gonna happen. Emmett, say
No.
goodbye to your
Sorry,
dream.
Emmett.
It's
Yeah,
not
I'm sorry.
happening.
For myself, the PS5 price is $425, but no more than $499 at the most. We have no idea what this thing costs. Second prediction, PS5 releases the week of November 10th, but is for sure out by Christmas. This is unabashedly half a point, I would argue, because it is for sure going to be out by Christmas.
Like
All of the holiday 2020
here's-
things, like it's going to be out by...
So I didn't fight this on like when we were actually recording, but like both of these predictions are bullshit predictions because as I did point out, like what
In
would
a
have
tweet
stopped you
form?
from saying okay, the price is $1 to $1,000.
The Price is
Good,
Right
I mean-
rules.
good logic, good reason, right? Like if it had been anything egregious, I think we
Like,
would have.
dollar amounts and dates like
he could-
pretty much are supposed to be like, hey, you got to really like
I gave
hone
you-
in on a date or an amount.
I would say this.
Maybe a week of kind of
Because you could
thing,
just
but-
say it's going to come out in 2020. Like,
Yeah, I gave you more. I split it where like I would lose half a point if I was wrong with the week. You know what I mean? I took
Yeah,
a bolder
but-
stance in 2020. That's an obvious one. You know?
No,
what I mean?
well, you took half of a bolder stance because then you said by Christmas,
Yeah.
and that means there's
Anyway.
only 6 days after that date for it to come out, which it's not going to happen that way.
Anyway, that's half a point.
I dispute that.
I do as well.
I'm kind of
I
with
think-
you guys.
I think
That's
they
no
didn't give you a
points.
date. So and since they didn't give you a date, using like your own argument earlier, like we don't know that it'll actually make it to 2020.
We do all the games that are holiday, unless all of them get delayed.
I think the
We have
console
to-
could get delayed. Like, we don't, like, I know they want 2020. I just don't think there's anything on track for specifically 2020, at least at this point.
I think,
I
you're totally crazy.
I think if they could have, they would have announced the date today. But I think with the way that things are going economically, with
No, I mean,
pandemic?
I think ultimately, like Trevor said, I mean, this is one that like earlier today I was thinking about both these two predictions, and I was like, if I could have done it again, I probably would have picked different ones, and certainly for the release, like the release date is one for me where looking back and I think. In hindsight, Sony could have done one of these things. I don't think they would have done both. And like I think, like Shuri said, like I think they're at the point now where like they're just gonna say it closer. Like I think Sony just like shortening these kind of rollout windows for console launches, but still not that short again. Like the argument makes with like, the Nintendo Switch. Like,
I don't know. I don't know.
I
So
imagine like a month or
Trevor says no. I say no. Frank, what's your opinion on it? Does he get half a point?
I mean, I'm
That's
definitely.
half a point. I mean, just by the logic of like these are
No,
rules
no,
you're
no,
trying
no,
to
no,
change.
no. By
You're trying to change these rules.
majority,
No, no, no,
I
no,
lost
no,
a
no, no.
point.
You're trying to
By
change these
majority,
rules
I
after
lost
the
a point.
fact.
Thank you very much.
No, you're trying to change these rules after the fact. Like by the pretext of like what this sentence is, half of it is correct as of right now, and in that logic, that is
by
half a
that same logic of half of it's true, half of it's not. None of mine was true, so I got no points. But I had a point deducted based off of a majority of this podcast panel saying that I was going to lose a point.
You also added Mark Cerny murdering a man on top of a Mind Simple and quoting Indiana Jones and Temple of Doom. I think it was more the qualifying factors that led you in than the prediction.
It was determined by majority.
Like, whatever. I'll retract my complaint. Take your bullshit half point.
Thank you.
Because it is pure bullshit that that you gave a 6-week window for a release date at the end of the year.
No.
I'm gonna so I've looked at like
forget?
four different articles and none of them mention anything PS4. So I would argue that nothing they have come out and said suggests it's going to be a PS4 title as well.
So I would award full points to Trevor on that
We're
one.
gonna say 3/4 of a point then.
Okay. I'm cool with that because I think that's totally fair. Where like I could still totally see this being on PS4 somehow, but I think that's absolutely fair. Where like they have not absolutely said that at all, and that's just kind of our speculation. So I think that's fair.
So then, Trevor is gonna end with 2.25 points. Back to myself. We're on my third prediction here. It looks like I predicted Rocksteady/WB Montreal will not be there, but Jack will be in some form. Jack was not there. Tragically, we're all very upset about this.
I'm sorry. I don't want to derail, but I was not here last time. Is there a specific reason you thought Jack would be here, or is that just like you wanted it to see it? Like
I wanted Jack. I mean, I think I like Jack a lot. Obviously, like I love Jack and Nectar and everything, but like I think even I'm outside of like the weird fervent people who just like continuously want like Naughty Dog even to make Jack and Nixie, which will never happen. And I
Quick
thought
question: was there a rumor or leak somewhere that somebody put out there that WB Montreal would be here?
I mean, I think
Rocksteady?
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, because Rocksteady and WB Montreal, basically Warner Brothers has the unannounced Arkham game and the unannounced Harry Potter game. Mm-hmm. People have been like speculating, well, they gotta show it off sometime anywhere. So, the rumors were like maybe this will be the event they show up to.
Fair enough.
I do think that's one again. I think it's a bullshit like thing to get to predict a will not be there, because as I said again when we recorded this, I was like, so what's stopping me from saying Halo Infinite will not be at the PlayStation event?
I think again you're taking these things to like the extremes, and I'm just giving
Trevor.
answers.
It comes down to your honor as a gentleman and the just that period.
Very true.
Like Logan does not have the honor of a gentleman.
Oh, okay. That's where we're going with that one. But anyway,
so take your half point on this one because Rocksteady and WB Montreal weren't there. Fine, whatever.
Okay. The fourth one is the one that I think I will most remember from this conference, which is 6 or fewer games will be shown off, not counting games shown off in a sizzle reel. I was off by about 20 games, so I get no points for that. I will end this conference with one single point. Frank, who was not on the podcast, unfortunately, but is here now, is the one who low-key came out and just came to win. WB Montreal will be there and reveal their next game releases after launch. That didn't happen, unfortunately, as we talked about earlier. But after that, he's on a roll
totally
pretty
right.
much.
Oh, sorry, I cut out for me there. Trevor's totally right for me, at least though. Where I know everybody's predicting that this game is going to be at everything. I really thought it was going to be here though, because like based on Arkham Knight with the PS4, like I thought this was going to be a slam dunk, and I thought they basically too. I thought they started teasing it at the beginning of the year because we were supposed to get a PS5 event like 3 months ago that got canned. And I really thought it was like they started teasing the game to be at the PS5 reveal, and then when the PS5 reveal got canned, they had to go radio silent, and that's why we're not getting anything from WB. And I also really thought they were going to align. It's not going to be exclusive, but I thought they were going to align heavily with PlayStation for the marketing and come out after launch. Like I basically thought we were going to get Arkham Knight again, And I'm honestly sad we didn't get that. And I really have no idea what the fuck is WB doing right
WB
now.
Montreal they're just kind of dicks who are just like constantly teasing shit. But
Driving Barrett Courtney insane.
Yeah, that didn't happen, unfortunately. Frank's next prediction was reveal of at least one revival or remaster of a dormant Sony IP. So this is one where, like, what are we calling? Are we calling, like, again, like, Sackboy, for example, like, right off the bat, like, is that a dormant one, or Oddworld?
I figured Demon Souls kind of.
Yeah, I was
mean, obviously we're working towards a big one too.
I thought I was like, I wasn't gonna get this until Demon Souls came out, because I expected more than one of these, and we only got Demon Souls.
Yeah, so the way we talked about it, kind of, and obviously Frank wasn't here to kind of like define, but we talked about it in terms of like if they had a game on the PS4 generation, they weren't dormant, so it had to be like PS3 or earlier. The one little hiccup I would throw on that is Demon Souls as Sony IP, or is Demon Souls a FromSoft IP, and they're licensing it for the remaster.
So this is why I will tell you this. The reason why it's never come out anywhere else besides PlayStation 3 is because Demon Souls is owned by PlayStation as an IP.
And that's why they had to go Dark Souls. That's why you basically get Dark Souls, is because Sony owns Demon Souls. So they basically had to do something else, but the same game.
When Japan Studio teamed up with Namco Bandai for Dark Souls, the reason why they had to do that and do the rebranding is because Sony wasn't willing to produce and put out what we now know as Dark Souls, but was going to be Demon Souls 2. So they rebranded everything, redid it, and then now we know the history of Dark Souls being this massive, success. Bloodborne was kind of like, they're like, hey, our bad, sorry about that, guys, come make exclusive IP for us again. And so Demon Souls is definitively a Sony IP.
So that is going to be 1 point for Frank then. His next prediction is going to be the actual PS5 console is shown off. That is going to be a point for Frank. And then finally, no price is announced. And with that, simple 4 words, that is a point for Frank. So Frank is going to end with 3 points to be crowned the first ever predictions winner from That News You Care About and the larger That Nerdy site. Trevor is in second with 2.25 points. I am in third with 1. Cameron is in fourth with 3/4 of a point. And Renee is in last with 0 points, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Here we go.
Even with my bullshit prediction that I lost a point on, you only beat me by 1/4 of a point.
I really, like, I almost had it in my other prediction too. Like, I don't want to do a ton of editorializing here, but I had it originally as the release date and the price won't be revealed, and then I cut it back to just the price, because I was like, I basically separated it in 2 different predictions, and I guess it still worked out. But I was definitely like, I figured in this one, like, they had to show the box, but they don't have to show the price, and they don't have to show the release date, especially because I think the release date's kind of nebulous at this point, and I think they're in a standoff with Microsoft on the price, even though they pretty much both probably have it figured out. I think it's who's going to go first, and I think at this point Sony doesn't have to do anything, especially because I feel like this conference was just a spike of the ball back over to Microsoft, and it's like, your turn, like, go next.
I will say, since we didn't get to have the conversation at any point in time, this can be like kind of the last thing for the podcast, is the fact that I think anytime I ever see anybody predict that this console is going to be $600, I just think they're out of their minds. Like, Sony gets blowback 2 console generations later for how expensive that machine was. Like, I just think you're crazy. Like, especially in comparison to, like, how cheap the PS4 was. Like, I just don't, like, Sony has no reason to charge $600 for this machine. Like, they're just going to swallow whatever loss it is.
Exactly.
And they're just going to make all of the money back on all of the software sales. Like, there's just no way the PS5 costs $600. Like, I think, like, and now knowing that there's, like, a digital version, like, I imagine, like, maybe 500 for the standard one, and then like 400 for the digital one, or like 450 and like 400, or like, but like there's no way that one of these machines costs $600. Like they're just.
I can totally
baffling
see it
to me.
being. I can totally see it being a $450, $500 situation.
That's where I'm
or
at.
a 400, 450.
I think it's 450, 500 because I thought the PS5 was going to be 500, and when they said, "Hey, there's a discless version," I think I go, "Okay, that's going to be 450." And I'm totally with you on like everything you said. I don't think they'll ever dare go back over 500, and I don't think anyone can.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like the level of damage right out the gate, and like granted, you can argue that was bad marketing for sure. Like get a second job, but like it's just that price point is so. Like, it's just like a mental thing of like going above 500 just seems suddenly like so much astronomically more expensive, and like I just don't think this machine is going to be this. And like I don't think Sony's stupid enough to really do it like that. Even if like no matter how much it will be a loss, like they'll make that money back on the back end.
Yeah, I think it's a point to I mentioned it earlier as kind of like a joke about like the 2K stuff, about like what the market will like what the person will pay, but like the PS3 launch proved the market will not bear a $600 console price. It just won't.
I mean, even more so because like I'm even more confident that like in the reality of the situation we're in now, where it's like there's no way Sony's gonna put a $600 console in the middle of a pandemic in a global what is gonna be a depression probably because of it. Like they're just like who will buy this thing? Like it'll be too much money. Like there's just no way that I see them doing that. And so, again, we'll eventually learn whatever the price is, and we'll have the podcast whenever that is revealed. But I just had to say that since I didn't get to talk about it earlier. Does anybody have final comments on the PS5 reveal event? We can go around the table. Cameron, we'll start with you.
I 100% withdraw my protest about my losing a point at this, like, from where I'm at now. It's a point of pride now.
The first person to ever lose a point in predictions.
Yep. I in any prediction series that I've ever heard of.
I won't let it.
I will take that in stride. Thank you very much. I am the sacrificial lamb.
I won't let it go that this is also the first person I believe that has also predicted a murder on stage in any prediction show I've ever heard. Like I can't let that go.
Yeah.
Yeah, I always my pet peeve in predictions is always when somebody's like such and such is going to get delayed. It's like you're never going to announce that in front of like when all eyes are on you. You're not going to announce a negative thing like a delay. Why would you predict that as a thing? Now I will have to up that with you should never predict a murder on stage.
Again, though,
or we will take a point away from you.
I think that what you're saying there is completely valid, but also on the complete other side of the coin, devil's advocate, I'm like, damn, if they did it, like, damn, like that would be wild, and he got it right.
Props, yeah, like respect if he killed a man, right? Yeah, like
if anyone was gonna do it, it was gonna be Mark Cerny. Like he was literally gonna be like, I made Marble Madness, and he was gonna stab him right through the heart, like.
Frank, any final thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, definitely, like, all jokes aside, like, I'm very hyped for this console, and I know you kind of mentioned it offhand earlier, like, you were kind of disappointed compared to, like, the PS4 event, and let alone, like, E3, and I'm definitely with you, like, I don't think this lived up to, like, the Year of Dreams, or, like, the 3 years of dreams we got there on, like, E3.
Yeah.
But for me, this was, like, more exciting than the PS4 reveal event. Like I was so hyped for the PS4 and I was so excited and I was texting everybody and I watched the live event. I was so hyped. Like I remember watching that event. Like I still have that memory 7 years later. And during this event though, like I guess maybe I didn't feel like as specifically hyped, but at the end I was still very excited. And when I think back though, I go, wow, they had way more games and way more games I actually care about and I'm looking forward to play. Than like the PS4 reveal event, at least. And one of the things I'm kind of excited about this too is like these are very near. Like this is the next like 12 to 16 months of PlayStation and PS5. Like they didn't come out and say, hey, this is the next generation and this is the next 5 years. They were like, this is what you're going to play by 2021. And after 2021, you're going to get more Spider-Man, you're going to get more Horizon, you're going to get more God of War, Uncharted, Last of Us, like whatever new IPs we have, whatever indies. And that's why I'm very like unequivocally just very excited for this next generation. And this kind of even upgraded me from being like, yeah, I'm going to get a PS5 in the first year to like, I might just get it day one.
Trev, final thoughts?
I would say the only one that kind of exists outside of Frank's kind of purview there is the Pragmata game was dated 2022. So that's not going to hit anytime soon. That is the furthest, of the things, like there were a whole bunch of things that didn't get a date as well. But of the things that were dated, that was the furthest down. One of the things I want to, as my final thought that I want to highlight that we didn't really touch on, and I don't remember if it came out before the console was shown off or after the console was shown off or what, but they also did like a little montage of a whole bunch of smaller indie devs kind of talking about like how they're excited to design new experiences for the PlayStation 5. And so really my big takeaway from this is PlayStation hasn't given up on indies, which has seemingly been the narrative the last few years. And I think so much of that comes from like everybody wants all the indies to go to Switch because the industry people who use their Switch on the road and stuff, like that's where they want to be able to play their games. Obviously, nobody cares about that right now because nobody's traveling and all that stuff. But like the notion of indies kind of still being a presence on PlayStation, and Shuhei I think is going to continue to drive that. With kind of third-party relations and all that stuff. I'm very excited for that, and we got to see a lot of cool little new indie ideas throughout this presentation.
Agreed. It's a great conference.
I agree.
No, go, Frank.
Sorry. I just wanted to definitely echo what Trevor said because I definitely feel like you're right. Where like I feel like for a minute, especially early PS4 and especially with the Vita, like PlayStation was very like indie focused, or they definitely tried to push that narrative. And I'm glad that even though like Gio's gone and now like Shu's kind of like more in that role, like I'm glad they were still able to pull a bunch of really cool indies forward and be like, hey, we still really care about like games and the like gamers and the games they want to play. Like I'm very interested in that.
Mm-hmm. It's a great conference on the whole. Obviously we just spent 3 hours talking about it. And I'm sure we'll have more to say next week and the weeks to follow on both of this and many other podcasts. And that's a show. Thanks for listening. You had a special helping, 2 That News You Care Abouts in 1 week. If you like what you listen to, you can go support us over at patreon.com/thatnerdysite. Like all of our wonderful patrons and producers and everything else have. We have a special shout out to Jason Bellevue, who we know is recovering and has had some medical issues, so we wish you the best there. And then, if you like what you heard, you can also rate, review, like, and subscribe to the show on all kinds of podcast services around the globe. It really does help, especially for the newer shows like That News You Care About. And we would very much appreciate it, and it'll make Frank Bazzani very happy if you do, and you don't want to make that boy sad. You can find all of us all over the internet. You can find Cameron at Rev Cabot. Anything you want to plug, Cameron?
More knack for the knack gods.
More knack for the knack gods. You can find Frank at Irrelevant Jokes. Anything for you, Frank?
Yeah, I mean, man, as somebody who was really pushing for knack too, I'm just like, please no more knack. Like, just let it die.
That's a great point. You can find Trevor at Trevor J. Starkey on Twitter. Anything for you, Trev?
I said this to Zyger when he tweeted about it, and I will say it again here. Yo, fuck knack.
And you can find myself at Lefty Logie, Loggy on Twitter. Fuck knack. We'll round off the quartet of knack thoughts here. And you can find That Nerdy Site at That Nerdy Site on Twitter, Instagram, and everything else. Until next time, thank you for listening and play your games.